Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. Karen demands I cook her Korean BBQ gets banned from our restaurant. I'm 24 male. I work at a pretty popular Korean barbecue restaurant. It's the kind of place where each table has its own grill, and the whole experience is that you cook your own food. That's kind of the entire point. We bring the raw meat, sauces, and sides, and you do the rest. It's fun, interactive, and honestly, most people absolutely love it. That is, most people. Yesterday, I was working a dinner shift when I got assigned a new table, a couple in their mid to late 40s. At first glance, everything seemed like it was normal. The woman, who I'm going to go ahead and call Karen, was all smiles at first. Her husband looked like he was just there for the ride, not unhappy, but quiet. The kind of guy you could imagine whispering, "Yes, dear," even in his sleep. I walked over, greeted them, and went into my usual explanation. "Hi folks, I'll be right back. Just so you know, you get to grill your own meats right at the table. I'll be bringing you the sides and protein shortly." Karen gave me a little laugh and said, "Oh, that's cute. But could you just cook it for us?" I thought maybe she was joking, so I smiled and said, "I wish I could, but part of the experience is grilling it yourself. It's what we're known for." Karen: "Right, but that's just a gimmick, isn't it? I mean, I don't really have to do it myself." At this point, I've dealt with people who didn't quite understand the concept. It happens. But usually, once I explain that it's a DIY experience, they roll with it. But Karen, not so much. "I just don't see why you can't do it," she said. "Isn't that your job? Or are you just being lazy?" Her husband tried to cut in with, "Honey, maybe," but she immediately cut him off with a sharp, "Quiet, Greg." Okay. So I smiled again and said, "I promise, it's not about being lazy. It's just how this restaurant works. Every table is set up this way." She leaned back in her seat, crossed her arms, and loudly said, "Well, I think that's ridiculous. If I wanted to cook my own food, I would have stayed home." I kept it professional. I understand it's not for everyone, but it's a pretty traditional experience, and a lot of people actually enjoy it. "Would you still like me to bring out the meats and sides?" She huffed, but said yes. So I went ahead and got everything ready. When I came back, she stared at the tray like it was some kind of an insult. "You're seriously not going to cook this?" she asked, raising her voice loud enough for nearby tables to start glancing over. "No, ma'am," I said, still calm, "but I'm happy to explain how to grill each cut, and I'll check in to make sure everything's going well." She muttered something about millennials under her breath, then said loudly, "This is the laziest service I've ever had. I don't know why anyone would pay for this." Her husband once again tried to say something, and once again was cut off. "No, Greg, just eat your rice." That was it for me. I knew I wasn't going to win this one. So I did what any self-respecting server would do when faced with a full-on Karen meltdown. I got my manager. Now, Steph is 29, and she does not play games. She's friendly, smart, and the type of manager who always has your back if you're doing your job right. I told her what was going on, and she didn't hesitate. Steph marched right over and said, "Hi, I'm the manager here. I understand you're upset, but we don't tolerate staff being spoken to the way you're speaking to my waiter." Karen responded with an exaggerated laugh. "Oh, you're going to lecture me now?" Steph didn't flinch. "If you continue, I'll be asking you to leave, and if you refuse, we'll call security." Karen smiled smugly and said, "Go ahead, call them. I dare you." Steph didn't miss a beat. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number from memory. Turns out, we share a building complex with a bunch of other businesses. One of them is a private security firm, and the officer on call that night is a regular at our restaurant. 10 minutes later, in walks Officer Rick. He's tall, calm, and no stranger to Karen types. He walks up to the table and says, "Ma'am, I've been asked to inform you that you're now trespassing and you need to leave the premises." And just like that, Karen's whole act changed. Suddenly, she was soft-spoken and polite. "I didn't realize. It's just my first time here. I didn't know we had to cook it ourselves. I was just surprised, that's all." Rick raised an eyebrow and said, "You were told multiple times, and being surprised doesn't give you the right to insult employees." Karen mumbled something about just trying to enjoy a night out and stood up. Her husband, Greg, poor guy, was already halfway out the door. They left without paying. Steph comped their drinks just to avoid a scene at checkout. Honestly, none of us were even mad about it. And now, Karen is banned from the restaurant. Steph even posted her picture on the "Do Not Serve" board in the back. Apparently, this wasn't the first time she's pulled something like this at a service establishment. We all went back to work, and I even got a little extra in the tip pool that night from some of the tables who had overheard the whole thing. Moral of the story: don't mess with Korean BBQ culture. And never underestimate the power of a manager who knows your games before you even finish your rice. You know you're a true Karen when you're banned from a place where you literally cook your own food. That takes talent. Lazy service? Girl, the only lazy one here is Greg, for not running while he still had the chance. Am I the jerk for cutting off my friend of over 15 years after she took my purse, spent my money, and lost it? I just got back from a vacation that was supposed to be fun and relaxing, but now I feel like my entire 15-plus year friendship just went up in flames. I'm 21 female, and my friend is also 21 female, and we've known each other since we were kids. We grew up together, shared birthdays, did all of the things that best friends do. But on this trip, something happened, and I'm still sick over it. A few days ago, she took my purse without asking. Not just any purse. This was my expensive Zadig and Voltaire bag. I hope I said that right. A Christmas gift from my older sister. My sister bought it for me when I turned 18, during a year when money was very tight. I hadn't gotten any other real presents that Christmas, except some chocolates and skincare. She knew how much I had always dreamed of having something nice like that, and she spent her hard-earned money to make sure I had it. I've been so careful with it for years because it means so much to me. And my friend just took it. I only found out because she casually mentioned later that she had used it to go to the laundromat. For context, here's what was in the purse. About $40 in cash, a bunch of quarters, a gift from my sister's best friend's mom, so also sentimental, about 60 euros in notes, and at least 20 euros in coins. Altogether, well over 100 euros. And that's not even counting the value of the purse itself. And then she told me she lost it. I wasn't blaming her. I was just crying. I told her how much that purse meant to me and how I had worked so hard to keep it safe for years. I told her it wasn't just about the money, but about the trust and respect. Instead of apologizing, she rolled her eyes and said, "How much does it cost? I'll just replace it." Her tone was angry and dismissive, like I was inconveniencing her by being upset. She comes from a very wealthy family, was raised an only child, and thinks throwing money at problems solves everything. Since then, she hasn't apologized, not once. In fact, she's been acting annoyed at me for being upset. Now we're on the last night of our trip, and I've decided I'm done. I've been quiet and polite so we can get home without more drama. But once we're back, I'm cutting contact completely. But some mutual friends are already telling me I'm being dramatic, that I should just let it go because it's just a bag. So tell me, am I the jerk for refusing to speak to her and ending a 15-year friendship over this? She's not your friend. She took something of yours without permission, used your money, and then acted like you were the problem for being upset. She didn't just lose your bag. She lost your trust. She needs to pay you back in full, including the cash, and she owes you a real apology. She stole from you, and the fact that she's not falling over herself to make it right says everything. Not the jerk. Honestly, stop being a doormat. People will keep treating you this way if you let them. You aren't overreacting. You just want someone to back you up so you don't feel crazy. You deserve friends who actually respect your boundaries. Your bag isn't just a bag. It's sentimental. It was a gift, and it represents something important to you. The fact that she's dismissing that instead of apologizing is awful. If she really cared about your friendship, she'd be bending over backwards to make this right. Update. After I posted, I tried to stay calm for the remainder of the trip. I didn't want to be trapped in another country sharing a room with her and spend the last 2 days fighting. So I kept my voice neutral, stayed polite, and just focused on getting home. Then came the flight back. Halfway through, she leaned over and asked me to hold her passport in my bag, even though she had her own backpack. I agreed, not because I wanted to, but because I just didn't have the energy to start another argument in the middle of a crowded airplane. When we landed, the plane was still taxiing when she turned to me and asked, in this clipped, annoyed tone, "Do you have my passport?" I was still hurt, still angry, and honestly exhausted from days of being gaslit and made to feel like I was overreacting. So I decided to throw her words back at her one last time. I said calmly, "I was checking my bag the whole time to make sure your passport was there, but maybe it'll show up when we get off the plane." It was the same thing she had said to me all week about my missing purse, almost word for word. She snapped, right there in front of everyone. Her face twisted, and she spat out, "At least I didn't bawl crying for hours over a purse." That was it. I was done. Once we got to baggage claim, I asked her to open her suitcase so I could check for my purse. She straight up refused. She told me I was violating her privacy. I told her very clearly that if she didn't let me check, I would involve the police right there at the airport. I said if she had nothing to hide, she had nothing to worry about. I wasn't interested in touching her belongings or going through anything personal. I just wanted to see if what was mine was inside. Her whole face went red. She was shaking with rage, clenching her jaw so hard I could see it twitch. People nearby had started watching us. Our other friends who had been on the trip stood a few feet away, whispering but not stepping in. Finally, she shoved the suitcase at me, almost like she was daring me to look. I unzipped one of the compartments. Inside was a black trash bag. I opened it and found a red Target shopping bag. And inside that, drumroll, my purse. Everything was still in it except for the quarters. The cash, the euro notes, the euro coins, all untouched. I just stood there staring at it for a second, almost too shocked to process. I had spent days crying, feeling like I was crazy, blaming myself for caring too much about a bag, and here it was, hidden at the bottom of her suitcase like stolen evidence. I didn't say a word to her. I just said, "Thanks," and zipped my purse back up and walked away. She didn't follow me. I got my luggage off the carousel by myself, which was a struggle since I'm recovering from back surgery and still dealing with pain. She knew that, and she stood there watching me without offering to help, even though she helped the others with their bags. That honestly felt like her final little act of cruelty. I took the airport bus home. The whole ride I felt drained, like I had just been through a war. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to ask why she had done it, what her plan was, why she let me suffer for days when she could have just handed it back. But I had nothing left in me. She blocked me later that night. No apology, no explanation. A few nights later, her mom called me at 3 a.m., crying about how badly her daughter and husband treat her, about how she's constantly belittled and made to feel small. I didn't even bring up what had happened. It didn't feel right to add to her pain in that moment. But hearing her talk about her daughter's behavior made everything make sense. This girl is a cruel and horrendous person with little to no empathy, and I think maybe a sociopath. I think about the suitcase moment a lot. If I hadn't pushed, if I hadn't demanded to look, I would never have seen that purse again. I still don't know why she did it. Was she planning to take it home and keep it? Was this some power move to watch me unravel? Was she waiting until the very end to give it back so I'd owe her my gratitude? I'll probably never know, and honestly, I don't care anymore. I got my purse back, I got my money back, and I got the clearest sign possible that this friendship is over. What do you guys think she was aiming to do with the purse? Very little of my money inside was used, and she's rich anyway. So strange. Thanks again. That hiding spot says everything. She didn't just lose your purse. She stashed it in multiple bags inside her suitcase. She made you cry and stress for days and didn't care. That's calculated cruelty. Good for you for standing your ground and calling her bluff. This is absolutely chilling. She had days to come clean. She watched you cry, watched you struggle with your back pain, and still chose to hide it. This wasn't about the purse or the money. It was about control. She wanted to watch you squirm. Cut her off permanently. The scariest part is that she only gave in when there was an audience. If this had been a private confrontation, she might have kept denying it. People like this don't change. Walking away is the healthiest thing you could do. She didn't lose that purse. She buried it like a squirrel hiding a nut. Yup, black trash bag, red Target bag, zipped compartment. That's not lost. That's premeditated. The missing quarters is the creepiest part to me. Like, why just the quarters? She probably used them to buy herself a victory snack. Am I the jerk for telling my friends they kind of put a damper on my husband's birthday weekend by bringing their baby? Last weekend was supposed to be special. My husband just turned 35, and I had been planning the celebration for weeks. I wanted it to be something memorable. We had 2 main events planned, a fancy chef's table dinner on Friday night and an actual outdoor festival on Sunday. We invited 2 of our close friends who we've known for years. They have a 1-year-old daughter, and we love her, but we also knew both events weren't exactly baby-friendly. So when we invited them, we were upfront about it. I explained that the restaurant was very small, with bar-style seating wrapped around the kitchen so you can watch the chef cook and plate your food. There's no set menu, no high chairs, and the space is tight. I even sent them the restaurant's website so they could see what the setup was like before committing. I also reminded them that the festival is out in the woods. Kids are technically allowed, but it's bumpy, crowded, and not stroller-friendly. We go every year, and they've gone with us before, so they know what it's like. We made it clear we'd understand completely if they didn't want to come to either event. They said they'd be there for both. So we made reservations for the restaurant and bought our festival tickets. Friday night arrived, and when they walked in, I saw immediately that they had brought the baby. They hadn't mentioned anything about it beforehand. My stomach just sank. The restaurant didn't have high chairs, so the baby had to sit in her mom's lap the entire time. Our friend looked annoyed almost from the start. Annoyed that she had to juggle the baby while trying to eat. Annoyed that there wasn't a kids menu. Annoyed at the whole setup. And her bad mood spread over the whole table. At one point, the baby started crying, so she got up and took her outside. Her husband turned to me and asked if I could go check on her. The whole meal just felt tense and rushed. The whole point of a chef's table is to sit, savor the courses, watch the cooking process. But instead, we were just trying to keep things moving so the baby wouldn't get fussy again. They left quickly after dinner and said, "See you Sunday." Sunday came and I tried to stay optimistic. But sure enough, they showed up with the baby again. This festival is one of our favorite things all year. There's live music, food vendors, art stalls, and activities scattered through the woods. It's one day only, and if you miss it, you have to wait until next year. From the moment we arrived, the day revolved around the baby. We kept stopping so they could feed her, change her, calm her when she cried. We offered to share our location so they could catch up with us after taking care of things, but they got huffy about that, so we stayed with them. We ended up spending most of the day sitting under a tent instead of walking around and exploring. We didn't get to see half of what we had planned. There were parts of the festival where strollers were not allowed, and one of us had to wait behind with them while they figured things out. At one point, I even had to hold the baby while she fed her. And this was supposed to be my husband's birthday weekend. By the end of the day, I could see my husband was disappointed. He tried not to show it, but this is something he looks forward to all year, and we barely got to enjoy it. The next day, she texted me saying she had fun and was sorry if the baby ruined everything. I told her it wasn't ruined, but it was frustrating. We had warned them both events were not baby-friendly, and we missed out on a lot because we had to slow down. I said the festival is only once a year, and now we'll have to wait until next year to see everything we missed. She got defensive fast. She said sorry they're parents now and have more important things to worry about. We haven't talked since. Now everything feels super awkward. I keep wondering if I should have just kept my mouth shut and let it go. But part of me still feels like she was inconsiderate. We gave them an out. They knew what they were signing up for, and it still became all about the baby. Not the jerk. And next time, just don't invite them. If they ask why, be upfront. You aren't losing friends. They're pushing you guys away. The entitlement is real here. You were totally upfront with them about the restaurant and the festival, and they still decided to bring the baby because having a fun weekend out of the house was more important than making sure your husband had the birthday you planned for him. They chose to squeeze whatever fun they could get out of the weekend at the cost of your husband's once-a-year celebration. That apology text wasn't really about taking responsibility. It was just a way to smooth things over without having to admit they were wrong. You were completely fair to tell her how you felt. She doesn't get to weaponize being a parent when she's the one who made the choice to bring the baby to events that clearly weren't kid-friendly. Not the jerk. But you're in different stages of life now, and that's showing. They probably feel like they can't leave the baby and want to include her in everything, but they should have respected that these were adult events. Maybe next year, plan a separate baby-friendly hangout so everyone can enjoy themselves. So they were warned twice and still rolled up with the baby like it was bring your kid to every event day? Yup, and then acted surprised when the woods weren't stroller-friendly. I just know that chef's table night turned into baby's first fine dining, with a side of everyone else's dinner going cold. My girlfriend demands to be a stay-at-home mom to her kids while I financially support them. I, 28 male, have been dating this girl, Amy, who's 29, since May of 2022. We met through a mutual friend and things were going pretty well up until a few days ago. Amy has 2 kids from a previous relationship, twin boys that are 7 right now. I get along great with them. Amy and I were starting to discuss moving in together and how that would all work out with the kids. Things didn't seem like a problem until she asked if we can find a place that I can afford to pay the rent on my own in case she becomes a stay-at-home mom. I asked in what instance she would become a stay-at-home mom when we aren't planning on having more kids and I had a vasectomy 2 years ago that she knows of. She said it's always been her dream to be a stay-at-home mom for her kids and the boys will benefit a lot from always having her home. She said she knows it'll be a lot of work for me to take on, but she would appreciate if we could talk about it and possibly make it happen as soon as we move in together. We discussed it, and I told her I'm honestly not comfortable with the idea of me being the sole breadwinner for our 4-person household. I could afford rent on my own, but groceries, bills, stuff the kids will need, etc., I can't afford all of that. And if I could make it work, that would mean nothing left for savings. I also said the boys are in school most of the day, and although I agree that any kid would greatly benefit from having a parent available 24/7, I don't think it's a necessity. I also told her I'll be stressed out having them all rely on me. She said she understands and that it's fine, and we didn't speak about it again. I got a call from her mom like a week after I had the discussion with her. Her mom started the conversation sweet enough, before getting to the point. She asked why I decided to date a single mother if I'm not willing to step up for her and her kids. To be honest, this kind of ticked me off. I didn't know deciding to date a single mom meant I'd have to happily be financially responsible for them all. I told her, with all due respect, this is between me and Amy. She said Amy won't have more kids because she's with me, and this is her only chance of being completely devoted to her kids. And although I can easily afford it, I'm being stingy because I simply can't be bothered to make a sacrifice. My blood was boiling, and I was trying not to say something rude back. I told her it isn't her business, and I cut the call. I spoke to Amy and asked her what her mom was on about. She said she needed someone to vent to about the situation, and her mom just so happened to have her best interest at heart. She said she thought it would be better for me to get her mom's perspective than to make a decision. I asked if it would be okay for me to go tell my mom that my girlfriend is asking me to bankroll her and her kids' lives and watch my mom call her names for it. She said I'm taking things too personally and I should have expected things to not go great after our discussion. I'm at a loss here. Edit. For everyone asking about the kid's dad and if he pays child support, he isn't a bad person, he's just broke and lives halfway across the world. He couldn't pay child support even if he wanted to, given he can barely afford to take care of himself. He also has a lot of health issues and that makes it difficult for him to work. He calls the kids quite a bit and is involved as one can be in his situation. She makes enough to take care of herself and her kids, so it's been alright for them financially. Not the jerk, but you do realize she plans to make this happen whether you agree to it or not, right? You'll move in together and she'll get let go, then have trouble finding a job. This is how it sounds to me too. She already decided not to work and that she has a meal ticket, and right now she's just in the process of making it happen one way or the other. Also, the last line about, "You should have expected that things would not go great." Darn, that statement alone would give me serious pause about continuing a relationship with someone. It has some bad vibes to it. Not the jerk. Get out of there, mate. This will not end well for you. Or he at least has to put a foot down and stop all of the moving in plans. If she conveniently loses her flat as well, he should tell her to move in with her mom and end the relationship. If not, maybe the relationship has a slim chance, but that's my romantic side. Wow, the audacity. Since you're happy to play with my kids, now pay for them too. Why? Because I said so. Run for the hills. Not the jerk. She's trying to use you for your finances. If she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, tell her to get more child support. Not the jerk, but you are an idiot, and I'm not trying to insult you at all, only trying to help. The mindset that her mom expressed to you, that's what all men will be held to once they choose to be with a single mom. Deadbeat knocked her up, now you're supposed to be the one to financially support them. I hope one day men learn to stop dating single moms. If you're a single dad, then it might be okay to settle. But when you don't have kids of your own, yet choose to be with a woman who already does, well, you kind of deserve what you're stupid enough to sign up for. Oh, that last comment is gonna tick everyone off, isn't he? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OG or Amy? Please let us know. Bruh, did you just say OG? Am I the jerk for transferring my assets to my daughter before my marriage? I, 28 female, had my daughter, who's 9, while I was in college. I'm ashamed to admit I don't know who the dad is. It was a drunken party mishap. My parents disowned me, and sympathizing with my plight, my grandpa took me in. He had a bad relationship with my dad. Grandpa passed 2 years ago, leaving me his entire estate. He was kind of rich. I started dating my fiance, Max, who's 35, about 4 years ago. He has 2 kids who are 6 and 10. He has full-time custody of them as well. Their mom married someone else and moved across the country. She pays child support but makes no effort to contact them or visit them. We've lived together for over a year now, and everyone gets along pretty well. We stay at the house my grandfather left me and split all of the bills and expenses 50-50, but keep the rest of the finances separate. He popped the question 2 months ago, and I said yes. A few weeks ago, we had a minor fight. My daughter's birthday is coming up, and I wanted to gift her a pony. She's been learning to ride for a few years now and really wants one. When I mentioned this to Max in a passing conversation, he got mad at me for wasting our money on stupid gifts like this. I told him I'm not taking anything out of our budget and just buying it out of my money. He said then I should buy his kids ponies too to make it fair. I said sure, let's split the expense. He told me I should buy it myself since I'm rich and it's my decision to buy my daughter a pony in the first place, that he's trying to make it equal for all the kids in the household and doesn't have the money to waste like this. I got his point, but I also felt that he would want me to make everything equal with his kids too. I get that they will be my kids too, and I should not treat them differently. But I also felt like my daughter should not have to split her generational wealth. It's not mine, it's my grandpa's, and he loved her. He left it to me, believing I would pass it on to her. So I made a trust fund transferring 50% of assets I inherited into that. It has rules regarding reasons I can make withdrawals out of it, like education and separate living allowance based on age, money for marriage, for housing, an entire balance made available at 30. I set up another trust fund for myself, putting 30% of the assets into it with yearly allowances and then to dissolve after 50, hoping to retire then. Balance 20% is mostly the house, land, and emergency funds. I did it, so whatever income I earn, I'll be able to make it equally split within kids. But inheritance will stay intact for my or my daughter's future without having to be split up and used for my stepkids. My fiance found out about this a couple of days ago, saw some related papers in my drawer. He was really mad at me for cutting him and his kids out. He said if I was marrying him, we would be sharing all assets and finances, that it's not fair for me to keep 90% of my wealth just to myself and my kid when he's sharing all of his with us. I said I was sharing everything I make too, just the inheritance is kept aside. He's not bringing any inheritance into the union either. He said that's because he has none, and it's incredibly selfish of— Okay, this guy's an idiot. Are you seriously still gonna marry him? That with this, my daughter will have a luxurious life while his kids have average life, since there's no way we can afford all of that for them with our income only. I said generational wealth is separate and it should go to biological family. He called me a jerk for discriminating and depriving his kids of an equally good life. Am I the jerk? Oh, you're only the jerk if you still marry this guy. Oh my goodness. Not the jerk. Smart move and easier than a prenup agreement, which I suspect he would have resisted signing. I guess the question is he marrying you or your money? Right now, he's got a pretty sweet deal. He doesn't pay rent for himself and his 2 kids, and he has a self-sufficient girlfriend who doesn't need him to pay for anything. He's so jealous he can't see straight. Think about this one long and hard. Not the jerk, but consider not marrying this person if he can't accept your decision. He might have wanted to marry you for your money if he's so bothered by this. You do realize, because of his attitude, you've already protected your kid's assets once he brought up marriage. You did this, in my opinion, because you know his intentions aren't honorable. Not the jerk, but follow your instincts. Not the jerk. Why are you marrying this man? He sees you as his sugar mama for him and his kids. You're protecting your daughter and yourself as your grandfather would have wanted you to. Frankly, I would step back from this relationship for a while. He sees you as a free meal ticket, which is something your grandfather would not want. What's your fiance going through financial documents in your drawer for anyway? You need to seriously consider this relationship. It sounds like he wants a free ride. Good luck, OP. You're gonna need it if you marry him. Stand your ground. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her fiance? Please let us know. Never marry someone who just wants to use you for your money. Don't date them either. Unless the trade-off is worth it for you. Am I the jerk for divorcing my wife for being a stay-at-home mom? I, 30 male, married my wife, 30 female, about 5 years ago. We'd been dating since high school. I loved how smart, ambitious, and driven she was. We bonded over academics and nerd stuff. We had both landed good jobs in the same city right after college. 3 years into marriage, we had our baby. We had decided on sending our kid to daycare after 6 months, but when 6 months were up, she refused to go to work and send our kid to daycare. Her argument was, if I picked up more work, we can afford a single-income household, and she will be saving us money being a stay-at-home parent. That it was better for our kid as well. I refused. Daycare is normal. If it was only me working, I would have to work way more hours, be exhausted, and not spend as much time with my kid. I said if she was scared about daycare, we can work in different shifts to stay home with our baby, like tag team. She refused, saying that does not work for her, and as a mom, she needs to be with her baby all the time. This caused a huge fight between us. She quit her job, she took care of baby during work hours, and wanted me to take care of cooking dinner on weekdays and cooking, cleaning, and baby care on weekends because stay-at-home moms deserve breaks too. This dynamic really made me resent her. I tried communicating many times. The load of bills and insane work hours, along with not being able to enjoy my time with my baby, all deeply upset me. When I was sure she was not going to listen to me, I filed for divorce. The court gave 50-50 custody. No alimony or child support since I proved it was her own decision to stay home, something I never agreed upon, and her career break was around a year only. I moved back in with my parents, and they have room for our baby too. Meanwhile, my ex-wife is struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. My baby stays with my mom when I work. My mom offered my ex the same, but she was so mad at me, she refused and enrolled our baby in a daycare. I refused to pay for it since she can just leave our kid with my mom. My ex-wife and her friends are calling me the jerk for divorcing her over being a stay-at-home mom and not providing any support. Am I the jerk? The comment section truly shows how crazy most of you are. Most of these "you're the jerk" comments calling me broke and asking me to man up. Others saying mom deserves to be with her baby and I'm the jerk for taking that away from them. My marriage was based on equality. I never wanted to be the sole breadwinner. And to everyone telling me mom staying home is best and the thing to do if you can afford it, I was clearly saying we could not. Daycare expense would have been 30% of my wife's salary, 15% of our joint income. I was not even demanding daycare. I offered my mom's help, part-time, different shifts, etc. Anything that would enable me to have quality time with my kid too. She refused that, turning me into an ATM and domestic help. To everyone saying I should have given her more time, each phase of childhood only stays for a little while. I missed over a year of my kid's life, big moments, smiles, and phases due to this arrangement. My wife did not care or sympathize. It was my duty to provide for her and her right to stay home with our kid. Further, I was responsible for fending for myself for food, washing dishes, and cooking dinner and cleanups every day. And on my only day off, the only day I could possibly spend time with my kid, I had to clean the house, cook all the meals, meal prep for the week, do laundry, mow the lawn, etc. I only got time with baby for about 6 hours, max 12 hours every week. I was working over 80 hours a week at an office and another 28 hours doing housework. What she did was take care of our baby. I'm not dissing her for that, just that I wanted time with our kid too. When I realized she would not listen to me at all, and I did not want to miss years of my kid's life, I filed for divorce. To everyone saying I'm taking advantage of my mother, I do not know how your family is. My parents love my kid. I'm my parents' only child, and my kid is their only grandkid. To those who say that I'm hurting my kid bringing in unknowns, my kid is having a great time being pampered by my mom and loves the time spent with me. To people who are asking what I won, time with my kid, memories with my kid, a relationship with my kid rather than just being an ATM. And to people who say I never loved my wife, I did, until I realized she did not love me or care about me, that she only cared about what she needed and wanted and treated me like an ATM and a slave. It was heartbreaking to realize, but it was not a relationship I wanted to continue with. She took away my time and my kid, and that is not something I can forgive easily. I would rather be a present dad with my kid. Not the jerk. If she would have had a conversation that took your feelings into account, you would still be married and the baby would have been in daycare. Now she has to work regardless and the baby is still in daycare. This is one of those mess around and find out scenarios. The courts decided custody and no child support, not you. Her decisions put her where she is right now, and that has nothing to do with you. Enjoy being able to spend more time with your kiddo. Congratulations as well on only having to financially support one person. Now you can have breathing room and enjoy your time with your baby. Everyone needs to be on the same page once kids are involved, and you clearly were not. You're not the jerk for not wanting to be the breadwinner, cook, cleaner, and weekend nanny. Obviously not. Was there supposed to be time in that for your well-deserved break? I'm sorry for your kid that this ended in divorce, but you tried to communicate your desires many times. Good luck to you. Bro, she unilaterally changed the whole nature of your relationship and put all the work on you without your agreeing. You're not the jerk. I would have divorced her too, and I wouldn't help her in the least. Best part is you forced her to do the thing she refused to, which led to your divorce in the first place. Love it. Daycare may be normal, as you say, but it's certainly not preferable to the care that a devoted mom provides. Only the two of you know how you would do on a single income. My wife and I sent the kids to daycare because we were convinced that we needed two incomes. Looking back now, with the benefit of hindsight, we would have been okay, and I wish the kids had had their mom for those early years. You're not the jerk for resenting the bait and switch, but breaking up the family over it seems a bit drastic. It's only a few years, then the kid goes off to school and your wife goes back to work. I can't see myself settling down with my pregnant girlfriend of 5 years. Am I the jerk? I, 29 male, have been in a relationship with my girlfriend, who's 28, for 5 years. We've had discussions about our future goals, including settling down, having kids, and other similar aspects. Initially, we were both on the same page. I believed she was the one for me. However, lately, I've been feeling a sense of boredom and monotony in our relationship. Our love life is great. She's a wonderful cook, and she's objectively attractive. There isn't anything inherently wrong in our relationship, but the thought of being stuck in a repetitive routine is becoming overwhelming for me. Additionally, 3 of her close friends are either engaged or married, and she keeps pressuring me about when we'll take that step. I'd been contemplating ending the relationship because I found it increasingly difficult to pretend that everything was fine. However, last week, she told me that she had taken 3 different pregnancy tests, all of which came back positive. To say that I was mortified would be an understatement. Despite my best efforts to conceal my reaction, she could tell that something was off. She asked me how I felt about the situation, and I must admit that my choice of words could have been better. I asked her if not having it was an option, which caught her off guard. The following 2 minutes were filled with an uncomfortable silence. After that, she got up and left the apartment. Since then, she hasn't spoken with me at all, and I assume she's considering breaking up with me. Meanwhile, her friends and family have been calling me names, but I've chosen to ignore them, as their opinions hold no significance to me since they aren't directly involved in the situation. Despite me feeling free and so much better now that we aren't together anymore, I still can't help but think I might have been the jerk. I'm reading everyone's comments. I'm using this as a time to self-reflect before meeting my girlfriend once again. I don't feel the need to reply as I'm not sure if my reply is even warranted. This is my first reply to any of the comments, but I want to use this as a way to say that I appreciate everyone's replies. I understand I lack some empathy here. I'm just not in a stable place at the moment, but your comments are helping. Lack some empathy? Bro, self-reflect your butt to therapy. She deserves so much better than what you've shown in your posts and comments. I hope there's a positive update eventually, and we don't get another answer from OP that sounds like his campaign director wrote it for his press conference. Update. Firstly, it's important to note that I don't simply view my girlfriend on a surface level. I wanted to highlight the aspects that appear… This does sound like a press conference, doesn't it? I wanted to highlight the aspects that appear ideal in a relationship from an outsider's perspective. Regarding my statement that she is objectively attractive, let me clarify. Yes, I do find her attractive, and I always have. However, it's important to note that she has evolved over the years. She invests a significant amount of time and money into skincare, facials, and luxury brands. She enjoys enhancing her appearance, and I support her in that. In fact, I've personally gifted her various items related to her interests. Update. I attended therapy, and I realized my negative feelings when it came to monotony stemmed from a lot of factors, none relating to my actual relationship. For the sake of privacy and still coming to terms with it all, I won't share the factors. My ex-girlfriend and I had met a couple of times since. I grieve what could have been every now and then, but I acknowledge it was my fault that I'd lost her. We've decided to remain civil for our sake and for our future kid, and I feel she's doing much better now. Though we're not together anymore, I bring her whatever I'd heard pregnant women might need. Whether that be maternity outfits, compression socks, tea, all sorts of stuff. I love her, but I'm not good for her. We aren't meant to be together, and I will be there for her regardless. Her friends and family still don't like me, but I'm fine with that. I'm just doing what I can for the mother of my child and someone I care for. I saw a video recently which talked about how a lot of people are addicted to the highs and lows of a toxic relationship. When they're in a happy, peaceful relationship, they can't deal with the stability and it breaks them. This is what happened to OP. He had everything he could possibly want, and he left it because he didn't know how to handle a peaceful relationship. Am I the jerk for telling my coworker to buzz off after she said, "This is why you're single"? I, 32 female, work as an interpreter. One of my work colleagues, Hannah, who's in her late 30s, asked me the other day what my plans for the weekend were. I replied that I was going to the woods with my club to shoot some arrows, and I had ballet class on Sunday. She was taken aback at that and asked me, "How many hubbies do you have?" She heard me speak about my classes before when I was asked about evening plans or when I said no to going to a pub after work. Despite my reply, she wouldn't drop it and wanted me to list all of the classes I do. So I told her that I took Italian classes, ballet beginners classes, archery, pan flute classes, and swimming. She asked, "What about your volunteering? Did you stop that?" I said no, I still do it twice a week. And that's when she said, "This is why you're single." That surprised me. I've never complained about being single. I'm quite content with that, so I don't know where that came from. I asked her about that, and she just said that I'm trying to relive my high school days, and no guy would want a woman that runs around in the woods with arrows and then bounces around in a tutu. Could I have been more polite? Sure, but she annoyed me. I told her to buzz off, and I left the room. Now she's telling everyone that I'm a jerk, and that she was only trying to give me advice because I'm immature and will be single forever if I don't get my act together. It's been almost a week now, and she's got some of the ladies on her side, and they're side-eyeing me. One even twirled like a ballerina, badly, behind my back as I was leaving the lunchroom. With so many people agreeing with her, I need to double-check if I was right to tell her what I did. Did I overreact? Was I the jerk in the situation? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but she's creating a hostile work environment. She doesn't get to dictate how you live your life, then get offended by you telling her off, in effect, to mind her own business. Yes, you told her to buzz off, but as aggressive as she was being, it doesn't sound like she would have taken anything less than you being blunt and saying what you said. You need to report this to your HR department or file a complaint about her creating hostility at work because of an exchange that she pushed. Then she assumed you didn't like being single. She's probably one of those people who thinks the whole darn world needs to pair up and have a romantic partner. And now she's having others demean you, tease, and mock you for living your life. That's messed up behavior, and she needs some serious consequences for starting this at work and continuing to stir the pot, and then bringing other coworkers in to stir it as well. Not the jerk. I'm honestly impressed. That's quite a list of activities, and I don't think I'd be able to dredge up the energy for that list. It sounds like you have a very full personal life where you meet new people and new friends who share some of your interests. I doubt the women agreeing with her have the full explanation of what preceded your comment. However, we're also missing something from your explanation because your post doesn't describe the level of anger or aggression you had behind the words themselves. But given the rude comments from her, buzz off sounds like an appropriate response. I'd be tempted to turn it on the other ladies. Ask the one who is twirling behind you if she'd like to see you in the ballet class had space for her to join. Ask the other ladies if they all met their partners in the pub after work or if they met them through hobbies. Not the jerk, but to be honest, she's totally right. No guys will want to date someone who does all these unnecessary activities. Do you happen to have multiple cats at home by any chance? Like, if you want to live your life doing all this goofy stuff, then do you. But if you ever decide it's time to find a good man, you'll have to cut way back on these silly childish activities and start being a bit more of a normal adult. Edit. To all you guys saying you would be happy with a quirky girl who does this kinds of stuff. I'm sure most of you are losers who play video games all the time and have never even had a girlfriend before. So of course you'd be happy with anyone who would give you a chance. I'm talking about men who actually have something to offer. You know, good jobs, our own place, that sort of thing. None of us would be interested in dating someone who does all this kind of stuff. As a normal, functioning adult, your entertainment should be once or twice a week and simply grabbing drinks with a friend after work or watching a game at someone else's house. This is called normality, and I'm not surprised at all that none of you seem to understand that. I, 28 female, refused to sign my marriage license at my wedding, and now I think I should leave him. For 6 years, I believed Fred and I were on the same page about what we wanted from one another in our future. We agreed, as in he's made this point as well, we didn't want to have kids ever, and I made it clear before and during wedding planning that I wasn't changing my last name, ever. He agreed to this. I'm an only child, while Fred has 3 brothers. My last name stops with me, while his family's last name will continue on with his 3 brothers, who are all married and they have kids. And with this all considered and points made on these facts, I believe there wasn't an issue because Fred agreed to it. I personally hate the tradition of taking on the husband's last name. In my personal opinion, it's just ridiculous. Even the thought of someone else's last name being attached to my hypothetical kids, if I do all 9 months of creating it and wrecking my body, just doesn't sit right with me. On top of that, why should I have to change all my registered IDs and documentation just because I'm a woman? It's not fair. So it's our wedding day, and Fred really pushed to have a ceremony in front of everyone where we'd sign our marriage license together. He was first to go, and when it was my turn, he had his hand placed really weirdly on the document. I told him to move his hand. We had an awkward, quiet battle about it, and when he finally did, I saw what he was hiding. It was his job to fill out all the forms for our license since he offered to do it for me, so I had one less thing to worry about, and he went behind my back and purposely filled it out so I would be taking his last name. Turns out in Florida, you can put your maiden name and the name you're changing it to on the form, and that's what I saw on the license, both names. We were at the clerk together with all of our needed IDs and documentation, and I was so stressed and exhausted I wasn't paying attention, and I trusted him, so I never thought once that in any world I would need to review what he filled out or to even review the license when we had it in hand. I refused to make a scene in front of all of our friends and family or fall into the pressure I was under, so I pretended to sign it, and the rest of the night was ruined for me. Everything I thought we agreed to and all my preferences he knew about and thought he respected were just destroyed. It was like my world was ending in what should have been the best day of my life. Fred is now a completely different person. He's all about tradition now, and how it's his right for me to take his last name, how it's embarrassing that his brothers' wives didn't make this an issue for them, and how all his friends will give him crap if I don't change it. He keeps saying that it's not that big of a deal and I'm ruining our future. On top of that, he keeps bringing up the argument about if we have kids, saying, "We can't both have different last names, and they should take mine. We said we didn't want kids." I know it's technically the certificate that changes your last name, but to know this is what he's wanted all along, and that he was willing to try and pull one over on me is disgusting. I feel manipulated and heartbroken, and now he's put all the pressure on me to make a decision because time is running out on filing for our marriage certificate and he isn't changing his mind. I feel like I've wasted our guests' time, our and our family's money for the wedding, and now our future together because I let him fool me for 6 years and I never saw this happening to me. I feel like I've wasted my life and I'm backed into a corner with someone I don't even recognize anymore. Karen leaves her kids at our house demanding we raise them. I, 29 female, knew from a young age that I never wanted to have or raise kids. I met my husband in college and he was decidedly child-free too. We got married a couple of years back. My husband's younger sister, who's 24, has 3 kids who are 5 and twins who are 2, with different deadbeat guys. 2 months ago, she left all of them at our house, said she was going on an errand and never came back, just left. We filed a report and everything. Last we heard, she was safe but did not want to come back. My husband's mom is a minimum wage worker barely scraping by. She used to be a single mom and does not want to raise these kids. I don't want to raise them either. Don't get me wrong, I do feel bad for them, but raising kids is a huge responsibility. I don't want to take that up. In the 2 months they were here, our expenses have increased. We had to buy them clothes and stuff, and they're sleeping in our living room on air mattresses. We only have 1 bedroom. I had to work from home and look after them because my husband could not get work from home and daycare for 3 is expensive. It's been really tough to say the least. CPS did get involved and asked us whether we want to keep them or not. I don't. I thought my husband would be on the same page, but he wants to keep them. CPS has asked us to decide quickly and make necessary changes. Get a bigger home for one. My husband and I have gone back and forth on this. I cannot live the next 16 years like this. Raising kids is hard and expensive, but he wants me to be there for his family, which I get. So yesterday I told him I wanted a divorce, quickly before he made any commitments and dragged me into it with him. He called me a jerk for divorcing him over these kids, for abandoning him when he needs me. I told him he knew my boundaries well in advance, and this was a commitment, having kids, that he is unilaterally deciding on. Am I the jerk? This is not relevant, but it is increasingly annoying when 1 out of 5 comments are telling me about wedding vows. We did not do traditional wedding vows. We don't believe in till death do us part. Our vows did include not having kids. Our vow was to stay together till staying apart made us happier than staying together will. Staying in a toxic relationship where you can't stand each other just because you made a vow was never appealing to us. I can't fault either of them. The only jerk here is the sister. And the deadbeat fathers. The sister is safe? Great. Maybe she can use her newfound freedom to take on a couple of jobs to earn money to pay child support for her own kids, or get thrown in jail for being a deadbeat mom. While some may think of you as a bad person for your decision, you're not the jerk. You had this crazy idea that you would get to remain child-free when you married someone who also wanted to be child-free. It's not like you're not agreeing on what temperature to set the furnace or what color to paint the kitchen. This is about as huge as it gets, and he made the choice he made without caring about your feelings. You're the jerk, but you already know that. Why else would you have asked? Get your divorce and get out of that man's life. Don't ever get married again, and get some therapy, or you're just going to bounce from man to man. No problem of her ever getting married again. Any guy who hears this and has a lick of sense is going to abandon ship ASAP. She has shown that she can't be relied on in any serious problems. Spot on. If I was engaged to a woman and she told me this story, I would end the relationship in a heartbeat. Imagine being in your 50s, less than a decade away from retirement, and your elderly mother falls down the stairs and breaks her hip, so now she has to move in with you. Or your brother gets in a car accident and is paralyzed from the neck down and needs constant care. Before you even hang up the phone, this lady would be halfway out the door, and after a few decades of marriage, she'll probably take half your stuff too. That's what this is about. Abandoning your spouse when they are suddenly burdened with a moral responsibility. It would put me off of even being friends with OP. Very selfish. You're not the jerk. Your husband and sister-in-law are the jerks. Repeat after me. If you keep disrespecting my boundaries, I'm better off without you. Honestly, I feel sorry for the kids, but sister-in-law needs to understand that you're not a spare mom because she doesn't want to raise them. You are 100% the jerk and a straight-up terrible person. Please get a divorce so he can find a good human being to spend his life with. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for divorcing her husband over this or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wanting a divorce after cancer? I, 35 female, and my husband, 36 male, have been married for 8 years and together for 11. We've got 2 kids who are 6 and 8. Last year, I was diagnosed with cancer. Although the treatment was brutal, I pulled through, or so it seems for now. The truth is, things have not been smooth for the past 5 years or so. I've been trying to fit in what my husband sees as ideal life, living in remote locations and adjusting my life to make it work for us as a family. His dream is to live by the ocean, far away from people. I'm a city girl. For the sake of making it work for both of us, I've taken jobs that are well below my abilities. For him, though, it does look like it's what I wanted. It was, because at that point it was the only available thing given the compromise. My husband was living his dream life, not even realizing that my resentment was building up. I did bring this up many times, but he was dismissive. Things blew up 2 times. He saw me flirting with other guys. I never even kissed anyone, but it was an emotional betrayal probably. I gave up alcohol 3 years ago to make sure I'm always in control and I don't do stupid things that can ruin my relationship. My husband is a great father. I've never had a father like that. He loves our kids and they have a great relationship. So do I with my kids. But he isn't a great partner. He asks me every day about my day, but he never really listens to what I say. He keeps talking about his work, but doesn't notice me. He makes a lot more than I do, 7 to 10 times as much, but insists that we pay everything 50-50 to keep it fair. During the past years, I've been covering more expenses than him, and I was working full-time during my treatment. He never offered to pay for any extras. In his book, they were years, my pregnancies, where I was paying less, so now it's fair that I pay more. I don't feel emotionally connected to him at all, and I don't want to hook up with him. So now I've been still contemplating divorce for over 8 months. I'm out of treatment, and I don't know if I'm going to stay healthy for a long time, but I'm tired of compromises. He's a nice guy, and we're planning to start therapy, but I just want to live a new life. Therapy seems like a burden to me. Am I the jerk for wanting a divorce? Divorced cancer alumni here. I could have written this post myself. My ex was wildly unsupportive during my treatment and insisted on me providing more financially than him, despite my years of volunteering at his business, which delayed my career. It took me 18 years to leave him, but I've never been happier. We don't have kids, so I can't speak to that. Allowing yourself to be happy is not a jerk thing to do. I make 4 times what my wife does. We have no separate accounts, completely shared finances. How on earth can people who split finances not take into account income differences? That's not fair at all. No, he is not a nice guy. He is definitely not a nice husband. Just one thing, OP. How would you feel if your daughter's spouse treated her the way your husband is treating you? OP. Oh no, I'd grab her by the hand and take her to either a counselor or a divorce attorney. Then why not do that for yourself? By staying in this toxic relationship, you're only showing your daughter that it's okay to be treated this way. Kids grow up idolizing their parents' relationships, and by staying where you're treated this way, you're showing her that this is what's right and expected of her. Compromise your happiness to make your husband happy. If you love your daughter enough to not want this for her, then why not love yourself enough to leave? You deserve happiness too, OP. He's financially punishing you because you grew 2 humans at great risk to yourself and weren't able to contribute equally? He's the one who didn't contribute equally. Ask for surrogacy payments in the divorce. What a tool. He's not a nice guy or a good father if he's teaching his kids to financially mistreat their partners. Goodness, just leave this man. Life is short and you know that. You're lucky to have it. Don't waste your remaining years being miserable. It will be hard on the kids, but they'll get over it. It's 2023, not 1953. Kids can survive a divorce. It would be better for them to grow up with happy, separated parents than with unhappy parents who are still together. You're the jerk. Love how nobody is bringing up the fact that you thought it was okay to flirt with other men and emotionally betray your husband. I'm sure this wasn't the first time you did such a thing, it's just the only time he caught you. The same husband who is such a great father and provider makes way more than you do and works hard every day. I hope you do divorce for his sake. Maybe he can find someone who knows the meaning of the word loyalty. Why do men with so much to offer settle for women like this? Reminds me of my 2 sons. Both are extremely hard workers, but married to women who have 0 respect for them and have both been caught cheating. If y'all had half the respect for your husband that I had for my late husband, you would all be ashamed of yourselves. My husband asked for a paternity test. It came back positive, but our relationship was never the same. I'm 24, female. My husband, who's 31, and I have 3 kids. Our sons look exactly like him, dark skin and dark eyes and hair. But our daughter doesn't. She looks exactly like my great-grandparents, really pale, blonde, and green eyes. But apparently, he didn't think it was possible that our daughter could look like my great-grandparents, and from the moment he saw her, he told me he wanted a paternity test. At first, I refused, because I felt like it was humiliating and because I didn't think it was necessary, because I never cheated on him, and I hoped he would trust me. But he didn't, and for the first 2 months of our daughter's life, he made my life horrible. He didn't want to hold her, even if she cried desperately while I was doing something else. He never woke up at night to help me with her. He never helped me with anything, and that hurt me so much, because with our boys, he was completely different. He helped me all the time with absolutely everything, and he was always there for me after giving birth. But this time, he left me alone, and it was the worst experience of my life. I have no family here, and his entire family, from the moment they saw my daughter, turned their backs on me. I don't have any friends here either, so it was just my daughter and me. She's a colicky baby, so it was very difficult for me to do everything alone, and on top of that, help with our sons. I decided to do the paternity test, because one day his entire family came to our house to celebrate my son's birthday, and no one spoke to me, and they didn't want to include my daughter in the pictures that my in-laws took of all the grandkids. So I knew it was stupid to keep waiting for them to come to their senses. Well, the paternity test came back positive, and everyone was shocked, and of course they felt guilty for not having believed in me. Everyone apologized, and my husband even cried when he held our daughter in his arms for the first time, and I know that his apologies were genuine, and that's why I forgave him, but I don't know how I can forgive his family. They treated me really badly and said horrible things about me just a few days after giving birth, and I can't forget their insults. My husband knows that I don't want to see his family, nor do I want them near any of our kids, and he told his family. So these last 3 months, it has been just the 5 of us. But it doesn't feel as good as I expected. My husband is constantly apologizing and crying every time he holds our daughter, and I'm getting tired of the situation. I want us to be happy as we were before. So how can we move on? My husband suggested that we should start couples therapy. How much can therapy help? I would have stapled the paternity test and divorce papers together. I'm so sorry this happened to you, but I would not forgive any of them. If anything, your husband is the worst of the bunch. He's your husband and he dropped the ball massively. Not only that, but he then gave his family that ball to throw at y'all. It's a no for me. Just the way he treated your daughter would be hard to get over. Even if he thought she wasn't his, that wouldn't have been her fault. How old were you when you got together? Asking because you must have started very young to have 3 kids by 24. Given his maturity level, I guess it would make sense that he went for someone much younger than him. Your husband is a cruel person. Could you really move on from that? No, I couldn't. Also an idiot. He clearly doesn't know how genetics work and would rather destroy his family than study about it. I'm gonna be non-biased. I'm a woman, by the way. If I were a man and my wife gave birth to a blonde baby opposite to myself, I would have suspicions because blonde genes are recessive, even if you didn't cheat, but there are a lot of women nowadays that cheat and make the men believe that the baby is theirs. Paternity tests should be mandatory for every birth to erase any doubt. Even if you were loyal and didn't cheat, I found you quite selfish and immature for refusing a paternity test just for your ego, and you didn't even try to see it from your husband's perspective. You could have done a paternity test right after birth, which would have prevented you and your husband from this traumatic experience. He's also hurt, not just you. His family has no right to treat you like this, and you could press charges against them. They're scumbags. But for your husband, I really think you were childish and petty for refusing a paternity test from the start, which would have eased everything. Instead, you preferred the high road, causing issues for both of you in the process. And even in your post, I just see your point of view. I don't see you trying to view it from your husband's perspective. He's crying, and you're just fed up from his crying and remorse. Both of you really lack communication as a couple. You need to go to therapy and fix this. OMG, don't listen to this woman. She doesn't seem to understand how insulting and heartbreaking it was for him to even ask for a paternity test. She thinks it was on you to prove your innocence instead of your husband to actually trust you. He let you struggle for months instead of actually educating himself and learning how a family's genetic features can be passed along for generations or even skip generations and show up again in future generations. The chances for her daughter to be blonde is really slim, almost 1% to have blonde genes from a great-grandparent. So would you believe the 1% from the great-great-grandparent or 50% from a secret affair with a blonde guy? So tell me which one seems more logical and has a higher percentage based on science. Try to be rational and look into science because you were the one who brought up genetics and basic biology. They're both at fault. Like you, I didn't just blame the husband, but saw this as an objective standpoint as a doctor, and I think that both parties have their fault. Why do you like breaking people apart? Paternity tests should be mandatory, whether the baby looks like the parents or not, so there will be no doubts on both sides. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Bruh, if that baby comes out not looking anything like me, you bet your backside we're getting a paternity test done.
Oh, Karen, you're gonna tick some people off talking like that.
Yeah, that tends to happen when you speak common sense.
My husband deserted me without a word. I'm still reeling from this, and I just need a vent. I'm 48 female. My husband, who's 50, and I have been homeless for about a year after he was fired from his job, but staying in motels. I do work online and have been able to keep a roof over our heads. He hasn't worked in a year. So on Tuesday, when he said he had a job interview, I was excited. He walked since the truck broke down and was sold. He said he needed both phones for numbers, So I gave it to him, not thinking anything about it, especially since I could still get in touch with him via text now. After about an hour, he texted me and said he got the job and just had to fill out paperwork and get his drug test done and would only be a couple of hours. Then I saw 3 expenses on the bank card in the county over, and I knew something wasn't right. Those couple of hours turned into that night, then the next morning. He not only wasn't answering my texts or calls, but he blocked me completely. He had both phones, both bank account cards, and my valid ID. Before I had a chance to cancel the cards, because it was my money on there, he had pretty much wiped out the account. I still had a few days left at the motel, so called around. My dog, cat, and I are safe at the moment, and I opened a new bank account, but I have to wait on the cards to arrive. But we can't stay here forever. I'm hoping the card arrives soon and I can get my ID done so we can get back into a motel, which is the only option at the moment, until I can build up enough money for rent deposit, etc., and find a cheap apartment or house. I do have a paycheck coming Thursday, though I'm not sure what to do after Monday when I can no longer stay where I am. As far as I know, my husband is with another woman. He contacted his brother just long enough to say he was safe, but wouldn't give an answer why. We'd been married for 9 years, but started dating back in 1988. We weren't arguing, and I thought everything was fine. Not a word, and I'm just devastated. I can't fathom why he just left me and our pets like that with no access to money and tried to clean it completely out, a vehicle, or even a live phone. He knew that most likely we would be out on the streets, but luckily we did find a temporary haven for a few days. I guess he just found someone that he wanted more than someone who supported him and was loyal through these bad times. I figure he found another woman with more money or something who could take care of him like I did. Anyways, thanks for letting me vent. Do you have family or friends to help you? OP, not really. All my family are deceased, and the one person I could call is helping me right now, but can't stay for more than a couple of days. We've had to move so many times because he couldn't keep a job or wanted to try someplace new. I think I became really isolated from everyone. I thought another friend was going to help, but they said they thought about it and didn't want any drama at their house if he decided to show up, which I can't blame them. It's pretty much just me, the dog, and the cat. Update. Myself and my pets are safe. My new bank card should be coming in today or tomorrow. With my paycheck on Thursday, I get to move into a studio apartment that I found. It's small, but bigger than a motel room, and it has a kitchen. They allow pets and even have a little fenced-in dog play area. I'm still working to beef up my paycheck for the deposits and food. After I get settled in, I do have an appointment with legal aid counseling for the area. So things are definitely looking up, and I really feel like I've got this and can take care of myself. Where I work has announced that there will be a huge increase in work available and should continue through the next year. And if he even tries to contact me, I'm not buying anything he says, especially if he tries to weasel his way back in. He can talk to my lawyer. Still no word from him? OP. Nope, not a word, and it's been a week. At this point, I don't even want to hear from him. Knowing him, he may try to contact me in a few weeks and say he deserves to explain himself. You know, after his side piece, or whoever he's with, finds out who he really is. And I'd tell him I and the cat and dog deserve to not be put in the situation he put us in, but what you gonna do? He deserves nothing. Can you go to the police and charge him with theft of money in your account? OP. Unfortunately, it was a joint account. I did contact the police, but they said since his name is on the account, it's a civil matter. So it's something I'll have to talk about when I speak with a lawyer. I have all documentation showing that the only deposits were coming in from my paycheck, so hopefully I'll be able to at least get half back. I have direct deposit information for the accounts showing where the money came from and screenshots of his last transactions. Last update. I and the furballs are in our new apartment, safe and sound. It took a lot of hard work and every penny I had for my paycheck, but we made it. I still need to get furniture, but we have a roof, and that's a great start. We're going to be all right, I know it. And even though I need time to know and love myself again and heal, it was kind of a confidence boost to be flirted with by a couple of the neighbors. I know many people were concerned about me seeing a lawyer, which I did today. The retainer won't be too bad, but it will need to wait until next week for payday. But it's the beginning of the next step. And I did hear back from him. I received a short email, which was the only way he knew how to get in touch, which just said, "Sorry, how are you?" It took a lot out of me to not respond because there's still a lot of hurt and grief that I'm processing. But I'm proud to say that I just sent a message back with the number of the law office I was going to, then created a filter to send future messages to the trash. It hurt, but it felt good at the same time. Someone in my old neighborhood wants a free house. I found a letter in my mailbox when my wife and I listed our house last year. I have redacted identifying info. Hey neighbor, I hope this letter finds you well and in good spirits. I write this in confidence it will find its way to someone willing to help me fulfill a very lofty goal. Over the years, I've longed to live in and raise my kids and grandkids in a safe, friendly, energetic, peaceful, clean neighborhood with good schools. I often pondered what it was like to live on the other side of the tracks, literally. On my way home from work, I'd veer off through the neighborhoods and imagine having a home here in this thriving neighborhood. It was always the trees for me. I earnestly believed one day I'd make it happen. Unfortunately, I haven't. I've worked my tail off and managed my way through many, many obstacles, but haven't hit that pinnacle. I do well for myself, and I live a well-rounded, happy life, and I'm uber grateful for what I have. I just don't think I will ever be able to afford a home in this neighborhood on one income, especially with the market the way it is and no end in sight, unless something marvelous happens. Therefore, I'm reaching out to the community to find out if there is anyone out there that would like to donate a home to me or sell me one at a ridiculously low sale price. I know, the audacity. But there are those with abundance looking to bless someone. I see it every day. I even participate when I can. I promise to be a good neighbor and to love it and appreciate it for the rest of my life. I realize this is a radical idea, but who knows what's out there? Someone that has way more than enough and would love to pass their home on to someone that simply asked, has two and is ready to move to their warm weather home and doesn't need to turn a profit, is just plain sick of humans and going off grid, or just wants to pay it forward and can write it off. Bought a fixer-upper and life changed. I'm very handy. I'm getting older though. Just hit the Powerball and is leaving everything behind. Maybe you know someone with a home elsewhere in a community just as lovable. Please do pass this letter on. You never know. So here I am asking. My dad always said, a closed mouth don't get fed. I'm currently renting in another area and I love it, but the rent keeps increasing every year. I've worked for this company for almost 20 years. Well, when I started passing out the letter I did. Unfortunately, I was part of their layoffs this week. I've attended a women's group in another area for 15 years as well. All reasons I have intentionally left my name out of this, hoping to save face for now. I made an email for responses to this letter. Please no hurtful messages. I've seen the nasty comments on the forums, and I assure you I'm a good person with a good heart and good intentions. I will provide you with my full name and address and references and background check. No resale contract, you name it, should you find interest in my request. Otherwise, thank you for simply reading my letter. So long for now. Turns out there are 15,000 homes in this area, so I have a lot of work to do. Serious inquiries only. Here's my email. Update. My sister demands to take my camper for her son to live in. My sister and her husband fell on hard times because of the lockdown. They went from renting a nice house to having to rent a room from a friend. It was supposed to be temporary, but they've been in his house for an entire year. And he didn't have more than one room to spare to rent to them. I have a family of my own and my house is full, so I didn't want them living with me. But I have a vintage camper trailer in my backyard. One of those small ones that they called a canned ham type. It's had various repairs over the years, including redoing the floor and ceiling, as well as getting a new axle. And it's in pretty decent condition for being over 50 years old. I take this camper on yearly trips with friends and on camping trips with my family, and I'm very particular about its upkeep. My sister, though, has asked to borrow the camper numerous times to put it in her friend's backyard so her teenage son could have some privacy and use it as a personal bedroom. But I know my nephew. He's destructive with everything and would turn my camper into a total mess. And I'm certain they wouldn't want to give it back whenever I need it because he'd already be living in it. I know they can't simply go out and get a camper of their own because ones in usable condition are not cheap. And right now, they're trying to save every extra dime to get back on their own feet. Recently, my sister has gotten our parents involved, and they think I should just lend them the camper, but I've still refused. They won't let up and seem to think that if they keep hounding me as a collective that I'll give in, but I haven't. My wife is on my side and has refused to let my sister and brother-in-law in when I wasn't home. They have a vehicle that can tow the camper, so I don't trust them not to take it if they can get into the backyard. My house also has cameras, and my sister and brother-in-law are aware of them now. They say I'm the jerk because I only use the camper a few times a year and they need it now. But I worry that they wouldn't want to give it back, much less return it in the same condition. I firmly believe I'm in the right, but with my parents and sister constantly breathing down my neck, I thought I'd come here for an unbiased opinion. Am I the jerk for not lending the camper to them? Info: I did suggest they get my nephew a tent, but they shot the idea down and called a tent temporary. If anything, that just felt like another red flag to me. More info: our parents do not live close anymore. They moved several states away to retire a few years ago. Update: I showed my sister and brother-in-law this post after getting the verdict. My parents have seen it as well. They are all very unhappy with me, but my parents have backed off and say they won't bother me with it again. I also spoke with my sister alone and went through the rough estimates of what possible repairs to the camper would be should my nephew damage it. My sister was not happy to see those numbers. Then I called her out on how they'd likely not want to return the camper when I need it, but they also tried to come to my house when I wasn't home to take it without permission, and I told her I'd have no problem calling the police if they ever try to do that. My sister is still trying to say that her son needs the camper, but when I went through the comments on this post with her, she became incredibly embarrassed and then she got angry. She left saying she won't bother me for the camper anymore, but still stated that she thinks I'm a jerk. I didn't reply because I knew she was waiting to gaslight me, just waved her goodbye and she left. My brother-in-law called me shortly after to yell at me, but he had no leg to stand on other than that they want it. I told him I'd contribute $100 for a tent, but they're on their own for the rest. They actually agreed to the $100, so I guess my nephew is getting a tent to live in. Update: things seemed to get better after I made my sister and brother-in-law give up on borrowing my camper. If they'd gotten their hands on it, I likely wouldn't have gotten it back anytime soon, short of getting police or a lawyer involved. Some people wondered if my sister and brother-in-law were going to actually use the $100 I gave them to get my nephew a tent to have his own place in the backyard. I admit I had my doubts, but they followed through on getting him one. Our parents sent them some money as well, and they got my nephew a good-sized tent that he can have a cot to sleep on in, and a small amount of simple furniture. I personally donated the cot as I had an old Coleman one sitting in my garage unused for years. I gave him a folding camping chair too. The boy got electricity in the tent via an extension cord from the main house. However, he frequently complained about the heat during the day and only had a couple of those little pseudo air conditioners that you can just put water in to keep his tent cool. Though honestly, I doubt this situation would have been any different if he had my camper because it can get pretty hot inside of it too. Now on to what happened a bit over a month later. My sister and brother-in-law were evicted from their friend's house. Apparently, while there was trouble with my nephew needing his own space and being messy and defiant, they were also having more trouble with the friend who was also their landlord. They tried to smooth things over by putting their son in the tent so he wouldn't be in the house much to avoid trouble. I suppose that might have worked had my sister and brother-in-law not been caught with things they shouldn't have had, illegal things, bad ones. Their friend/landlord went into their room while they were away and he found their stash. That's why they were evicted. Suddenly, it made sense why in 2 years they couldn't have afforded a small apartment to move into despite both of them working full-time. Their extra cash just went right to their habits instead of saving it like they claimed to have been doing. Looking back, they did look a bit more unhealthy at the time, but I assumed it was due to stress. And not long after being outed, their habits put them behind bars. People who are using this kind of stuff can go very wild in an instant, and that's exactly what happened. When their friend/landlord gave them an eviction notice for having found this stuff in the house, my sister and brother-in-law both got physical with him, and he called the police. That scared them, and they locked themselves in their rented room. Meanwhile, my nephew was blissfully unaware of what was happening as he was just gaming alone in his tent. The friend/landlord pressed charges, and the police soon arrested my sister and brother-in-law because there was indoor security cameras that caught the whole altercation. I was very surprised about what had happened when I heard about it. I got a call from the police station, and I was asked to take in my nephew since he could no longer stay where he was. Since our parents are states away and living in a retirement community, they couldn't take him in, so it was up to me, and I did so. I wasn't particularly fond of my nephew, but I realized his upbringing really did not help our relationship, nor did the fact that my sister and I don't really get along. We brought his tent over to my place and set it up in my backyard. He's still living in it, even though we've cleared out the attic for him, but he says he likes the tent better because it feels like his own little house where he can just be himself. We've even added a mini fridge that I bought used in there for him, so he can have cold drinks when he wants them. Currently, we're still working on becoming my nephew's permanent legal guardians. My sister and brother-in-law are both facing heavy charges. They assaulted a man, resisted arrest, and were in possession of things they shouldn't have had. From jail, though, they've actually been very cooperative, albeit while dealing with withdrawals and no longer being able to self-medicate. I've been to see my sister, and she said she and her husband were so out of it the day that it happened, they don't even remember attacking their friend. I don't know if they're faking memory loss to try and get a lesser punishment, or if they really were that messed up. But I suppose it doesn't matter. It changes nothing since there was CCTV showing the attack. They're looking into possibly getting a plea deal when they go to court in November. But even with that, they may be in prison until their son is over 18 at least. I didn't have the heart to risk the foster system on my nephew. My wife has had my back on this too, and we've been working as a team. My sister and brother-in-law have signed over the title to their SUV to me, and the plan is to make it my nephew's vehicle when he gets older, since he'll be 18 in 3 years. Or we can sell it to get him something that uses a lot less fuel. I already had to pay to get the SUV back from the police impound. That's money I know I'm never going to get back. When my sister and brother-in-law get out of prison in a few years, they're not exactly going to have much to their name. So taking care of their son and making sure he grows up in a better environment feels like the least I can do. For those wondering about the stuff they were using, it wasn't entirely out of left field. My sister was especially troubled in her teenage years and struggled with addiction in her early 20s with the same thing. She nearly got kicked out of college for it. Our parents always dug her out of the mire and helped her back on her feet. They even paid for her rehab. We all thought she'd been clean for a long time, but she admitted to me when I visited her in jail that her husband also had the same addiction issues. That's actually how they met. Not in rehab, but in a focus group after the rehab. They didn't admit to any of this until recently, not sure why. But with the stress they faced in the past 2 years, falling back into old habits became easy for them. I've tried checking up on their former landlord to ask if he was okay. However, he wants nothing to do with my family. He had some pretty offensive things to say when I went over to gather my sister and brother-in-law's stuff, once police gave me the okay. And the man actually threatened me while I was there carrying out the boxes. He said he thinks my family are all alike, a bunch of filthy jerks. So I don't feel as sorry for him as I did. He's a pretty big jerk himself. My nephew also confirmed this. My kids weren't exactly receptive of their cousin being around. There's a bit of an age gap between them, and they just don't relate to one another. And while my nephew is messy, we make him clean his tent once a week, and we make him shower at least 2 to 3 times a week. We live in a warmer climate, but now that the seasons are changing, it's cooling down a little bit to where he says the tent isn't so bad. He's got a tablet, a laptop, a DVD player, and a Nintendo Switch to occupy his time. But we keep these things in the house whenever my nephew isn't home. It's way easier to steal out of a tent than a house after all. Considering how angry my nephew was before, he rarely shows his temper now. Yes, he makes it hard to get him to do his chores, but as a whole, he's shown more improvement in a couple months than I saw in 3 years. He's extremely grateful, but he's also very solitary. We give him space most of the time, and I make sure my kids don't bother him either. He's going through a lot right now. My nephew plays a lot of Zelda and Fortnite. At least those are 2 of the games he plays that I know of. My kids love those games too. We've also given my nephew the old 10-speed road bike I used to use years ago. He rides it to and from school, as we live about a mile away from the local high school. Thus far, most of the drama from him has been school-related. He had to change to a different high school and make new friends, which he wasn't particularly happy about. He really doesn't like doing his homework, and he's been fighting with his teachers, but that's a problem many parents face on the regular. He says he's made a few friends though, and I'm thankful for that. We're taking things one step at a time, and so far it's slowly getting better. My nephew has also talked of one day getting a part-time job. For the record, he brought this up, not me or my wife. He says he needs to be ready to be independent when he's 18, but we wouldn't kick him out just for getting older. He's one of our kids now too, after all. But if he's willing to work hard and move on to working full-time or going to college, we'll encourage him. I just don't want him ending up like either of his parents. He seems to be far better off mentally without their influence now anyway. It makes me regret not wanting to take him in sooner, but I didn't know how bad things really were. To think this all started because my sister and brother-in-law wanted my camper for their son. And those of you who said they potentially wanted it to skip town if they had gotten a hold of it, you may very well have been right. They were on thin ice with their landlord and falling ever deeper into addiction. Thus far, though, my nephew has been completely indifferent to the camper, even though his tent is practically right next to it. He says as long as he has his own space, he's fine. Reminds me of when I was his age. I enjoyed hanging out and spending nights in the old shed my parents made into a playhouse for me and my sister when we were kids. But we are still required to have a room at the ready for my nephew whenever a social worker checks up on us. He has the bulk of his stuff in the attic room, but chooses to stay in the tent, which the social worker doesn't seem to mind since it was my nephew's preferred place to hang out, so long as an actual room was available to him. We also have a 7-foot-tall privacy fence all around the backyard and cameras too. That helps my nephew feel safe back there at least. So for now, I think we have things covered. I probably won't update again, as it's pretty much a guarantee my sister and brother-in-law are going to be locked up for a few years. Our parents are especially mad at them about it and have thanked me to no end for taking my nephew in. They want to fly over to visit this Christmas so we can all spend time as a big family for the first time since lockdown. And before I go, I know some are probably going to ask where brother-in-law's family is for all of this. Couldn't they help? Why didn't my sister and brother-in-law ask them for help? Well, the answer is they couldn't. I don't know a lot, but brother-in-law spent the latter half of his own childhood in the foster system. His family aren't in his life. I don't know who they are or where they are. He hated them so much that he actually took my family name when he married my sister, so they aren't involved whatsoever with my nephew.
Most of the stories we read infuriate me, but this one, my heart feels something strange right now. I don't know what it is.
Aw, is Karen getting emotional?
Silence, you fool.
My Karen mother-in-law is trying to give away my RV. I'm feeling incredibly grossed out, so maybe this is hormones talking. I just gave birth a couple of weeks ago. Back in March, my husband and I bought an RV for $2,500 that needed new floors, some patchwork on the roof around the skylight windows, and some updated appliances. All summer, we worked on the RV and sunk in over $4,000. The only thing left to complete is updated appliances, but it's not a necessity. Obviously, since we had just had our baby though, that's being put on hold. But we still intended on having it completed by next summer so we could go camping and traveling around for a few months. That's why we got the RV to begin with. Now, my husband's sister, Jamie, who's 38, is having marital problems apparently, and for whatever reason, my mother-in-law thought it would be okay to tell Jamie that she could have our RV since we aren't using it anyways. We are no contact with Jamie following her running her mouth about us to the rest of the family because I refuse to watch her dog for free anymore because I was heavily pregnant and her dog is a big untrained nuisance. We haven't spoken to Jamie in at least 3 months. We went 100% no contact when we found out that she was heavily trashing our names. So why mother-in-law would give our stuff to Jamie baffles me on many levels. Therefore, when mother-in-law came here and said,
I told Jamie she could have your RV because she needs to get out of her house. We already have renovation plans for the camper.
I was upset. I asked her why she would give away stuff that isn't hers and why she would think that was acceptable. She pulled the
family helps family
and
pay it forward
talk. Much to my surprise, my husband said, whatever, she's already told my sister she could have it, and maybe it's good karma. He was upset, but still agreed to just give it anyway. I basically told them to buzz off because I worked hard on this RV all summer while uncomfortable and pregnant, and I'll be darned if it's going to be given away to a no-contact family member right from under my nose without even asking. My husband told his mom he would bring the RV to his sisters within the week. Without doing much thinking at all, honestly, I packed up me and the baby and moved us into the RV. I'm not okay with giving away the RV, and they both know it. So I took the extreme route. My husband says I'm being overdramatic and that we can just get another RV eventually. We can't afford to buy a new one with the camping season coming up. Am I the jerk? I struggle to understand your husband here. He's a coward who clearly is scared to stand up to mommy. You've got a problem with your boundary-stomping in-laws and your husband who just lets them. Why on earth would your mother-in-law give anyone your RV, much less one you've worked on for months, and why is your husband letting her walk all over him? So family helps family, huh? What has Jamie done to help you? She's having a fit because you don't want to watch her dogs and talking smack, and you're supposed to just give her an expensive RV? I don't think so. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your husband and his mom and his sister are, though. Who does this? Just gives away an RV that's worth thousands of dollars without asking the people who own it. I assume it's a marital asset, as you and your husband both sank in money and work into the RV. This is a red flag, especially after you gave birth, and even more so after you said no. Your husband's problem is more terrible than your in-laws, though. Why is he not supportive of you and your desires? Has it always been this way in your marriage? If in the future your mother-in-law unilaterally gives away more of your belongings to others, is your husband going to still talk about good karma without supporting you? What does this mean for your kid, that their father won't support their mom? You have to think carefully about your marriage. For now, try to have your own friends and family to support you. Your postpartum and your physical and mental health are definitely going to be impacted all by this stress and in turn affect your baby. I'd tell the husband that we're keeping the RV or I'm getting it in the divorce. Also, let all of them know that it will be reported stolen if it leaves your property. I'd die on this hill. The amount of audacity, overstepping, entitlement, and pure blatant disrespect cannot be tolerated anymore. Be a good role model for your kid and show them that you never back down to a bully, even if those bullies are their own flesh and blood. You're the jerk. I've got a feeling husband was the one who actually paid for the RV and who did most of the work on it. Sure, you said we bought it, but you know how these stories usually go. His money is our money and my money is my money. Of course, if that is the case, you would totally leave that out, wouldn't you? If husband wants to give the RV to his sister, he has every right to. This is another story of a wife who expects her husband to turn against his family and support her delusional thinking. Well, who do you think is a jerk? OP or her mother-in-law? Please let us know.
All I know is I want to watch some more of those RV life videos. I can't be the only one who enjoys them so much.
Am I the jerk for not wanting to watch my brother's kids on our family vacation? I'm on vacation with my immediate family. I'm female 30 and my two brothers are in their late 30s. They're both married and they each have kids. 5 kids in total, ranging in age from 3 to 9 years old. My parents are also on the trip and I'm accompanied by my boyfriend of 2 years. We're here for a week and it's been really fun so far. We have a mix of days where we have activities planned and then a few free days. My family has had a text thread going for months with all of the trip planning, so we knew which days were activity days versus free days. My boyfriend and I planned a romantic dinner for one of the free nights at a really nice restaurant on the island. We made a reservation months ago because it books up. I was getting ready to go out and one of my sister-in-laws made a comment about me dressing up to stay in. I was confused and asked her to clarify. She said that she, my brother, and my other married brother and his wife were doing a couple spa evening experience that she booked a few days earlier, and they needed me and my boyfriend to watch all of their kids. She said my brother was supposed to have asked me earlier that day. He forgot to. When I explained that my boyfriend and I already had plans, she was super unsympathetic. She said they already prepaid for the spa experience, and since we hadn't paid for the dinner yet, it wouldn't make sense for them to have to cancel their plans. I never agreed to watch their kids. I love my nieces and nephews, but my family knows I'm child-free and I have been for years. It's been a point of contention for a long time. I wouldn't mind watching them if I had been given advance notice, but to have them slapped on me when I had plans with my boyfriend made me really upset. My sister-in-law said I didn't understand how much she needed time away from her kids because I don't have kids of my own. She said I was being selfish and I could handle one night of being a mom. It's not the point. I would have agreed if she had asked me months ago before my boyfriend and I had made dinner plans. I checked and we wouldn't be able to get another reservation before we leave. My parents walked in on us arguing and eventually they offered to watch the kids. They were supposed to go to a free concert on the beach together, but decided to cancel so someone could stay with the kids. I felt really bad, but my mom insisted. Now it's the next day and my sister-in-law won't even look at me. I'm upset at her too, but we're stuck here for a week, so I don't know what to do. My mom thinks I should apologize, but I feel I'm the one who's owed the apology here. Am I the jerk? Edit. Forgot to add, we're not staying in a resort or hotel that would have babysitting services. We're staying in a family friend's vacation house and rental property. She said you were being selfish and you could handle one night of being a mom? Why not ask politely? Making accusations is not the way to get people to be nice to you. And why can't she accept a reasonable no? You had made plans just like they had. You couldn't reschedule. And also, she got what she needed, a babysitter for the night. So why is she mad at you and not at her husband or herself for not organizing her stuff properly? Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Your sister-in-law should be mad at your brother for not asking you for one thing, but they also should have asked you before booking. It sucks that they need this, but they're the parents, and there are more options besides assuming you will do it and then trying to guilt trip you when you don't. If you haven't already, you should talk to both of your brothers about this. You're their sister, and they wanted you to watch their kids, but thought it was fine not to ask and let your sister-in-law bully you into it. That's a one-way ticket to never having you babysit. And your mom is out of line for asking you to apologize rather than having a word with her son and daughter-in-law about how rude and immature they're being. OP. My mom is very non-confrontational and just wants to keep the peace while we're on vacation, so I understand that. But yeah, I'm planning on talking to my brothers about it today when I have a chance to be alone with them. My oldest brother, not the one who's married to the sister-in-law I was talking about here, told me not to worry about it this morning, so he sees my side of things, I think. Not the jerk. This is all I needed to read. My sister-in-law said I didn't understand how much she needed time away from her kids because I don't have kids of my own. Can't handle kids, don't have kids. She said you were being selfish because you couldn't handle one night of being a mom? Nope. Child-free means that you do not want to be a mom, not even for a night. Sister-in-law needs to put her entitlement in check, and the fact that your brother did not step in is leaving me flabbergasted. There is no part in this story that you are responsible for. If your mother thinks that you should be the one to apologize, show her this post. This is a hill to die on, and we're here to support you. Hopefully, you and your boyfriend can find a way to enjoy the rest of your vacation. All the best, OP. Well, what do you think? Should OP have babysat or not? Please let us know.
Your sister-in-law is a total Karen. Boggles my mind how people can act like that.
Am I the jerk for gleefully telling people that I was diagnosed with an illness after they dismissed me? I, 34, female, have always been a filler person. My parents each had a kid they obviously favored. My mom favored my younger sister, my father my younger brother. I'm the friend that is ignored in the group. I'm the employee whose birthday is forgotten. I'm the person who doesn't get dates. I've gotten used to it. As a result of being this agreeable, filler, boring person, I think the people around me don't realize that I'm a real person who has needs like everyone else. The prime example was when I said that my chest hurt and I coughed all the time. The people I spoke to, and I know only a few people, said that it was not a big deal and that I'd be fine. I'd never complained before, so I should be fine. I took that to heart and wondered if I really should have told people that I didn't feel well, and wondered if I was making it up in my head. It took me a long time to actually tell the doctor my symptoms because I thought I was overreacting, but I had to get checked out. Well, it turns out that there was something wrong with me. I have stage 2 lung cancer. I'm still independent and handling this alone. I drive myself to and from appointments, I pick up my medication, I reason with doctors and insurance. I haven't slacked in housework or at work. In fact, I've worked even harder. Today at work, I told my friend I couldn't help her move as a favor because I had a medical appointment that day. She pressed me for details, and I just said that I have treatment for lung cancer. I didn't want to give her more information than that. My husband complained that I told her the information gleefully, as if I'm happy about the news. I told him I'm happy to be diagnosed because it's proof for myself that I'm human with needs like everyone else. I wasn't crazy. He said I shouldn't act like this. My husband has been unstable and touchy about random things this year, so I don't know if he has a point. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'm in therapy. My therapist and I are working through things, and she's been very helpful. I feel somewhere between a filler person and an automation. Filler people aren't real. They don't have complexities in life, and they exist solely to make others shine. Machines don't get sick. The diagnosis was something that was concrete. I exist. I'm a person. I'm not crazy, and it's not in my head. I don't want attention from others. I cried and felt relief in the same moment. Thanks to the comments, I think I know why my husband has been unstable and touchy. The beginning of this year, the love of his life got into a car accident and broke her femur. She survived and is healthy now. I think that could be part of what's concerning him. My illness is a reminder that she could have passed, and she could still pass, and life is unpredictable that way. I alone wouldn't inspire such emotion in my husband. The comments made me realize that my husband likely felt hopeless at the concept of death. I traced back when he started to become touchy and moody and realized it was when she got into that accident. My husband has asked to help, but there's nothing for him to do. I've taken care of everything so far and will continue to do so. You buried the lead with that my husband's love of his life got in a car accident statement. OP. The love of his life, my husband's first love, the only one that got away, whatever you want to call it. They were childhood friends. They dated and broke up when my husband was younger. She's a passionate person that wanted to live a passionate life. My husband never got over her and blames himself for losing her. I met him shortly after he broke up with her. We dated for 2 years. Through bits and pieces, I've realized how much she means to him. He was an hour late to our wedding. I found out later that his father had to talk him out of leaving me at the altar. It would embarrass his family. He had doubts because of her. I mentioned her once, and he snapped at me to never mention her name again. He looks her up constantly, as she frequently posts on social media. They remain connected. He's always interested in news of her. He loves her deeply still, I know. She got into an accident earlier this year and broke her leg, her femur. I didn't know to connect his moodiness and general upset with that until now. Update. The past week has been a roller coaster of emotion for me. My therapist had suggested that I write my thoughts and emotions in a journal, but I always convinced myself there wasn't enough time in a day. Writing that post made me realize that I was dealing with a lot of emotions that I suppressed. I did resent the people in my life who just took and took without giving back. I had told nobody besides my therapist about how much I feel like a ghost of a person and how I pushed things down and never complained. So I spent hours writing down my thoughts in a diary. I realized that I needed to be more honest and stop tiptoeing around people and make them comfortable. I told my husband that I knew about his past with his ex-girlfriend. I knew that they had unresolved feelings and he needed closure about her and their relationship. He kept checking her social media throughout the years, but it intensified this year after she was in the accident. He was shocked that I knew. I encouraged him to reach out and get that closure he wanted. We had a good conversation. He hugged me and reached out to her pretty much immediately. I think he was waiting for that push from someone. He was so happy after the conversation they had. He was glowing. She's apparently coming to our city in a month and they'll meet in person. He's been more affectionate and genuinely lighter, like there's weight off his chest. I went through the motions of life. I started ignoring calls from my parents. I didn't want to help out anymore. I was too tired. My mom called and said I was being arrogant and moving away from family before asking me to help with something. I didn't reach out to my friends. I have only a few and we would text every day. I realized we texted because I always reached out. I told someone else about my diagnosis. My neighbor, Nancy, is a woman in her late 70s. She's one of the few people I feel seen by. She cares about me, and if I had told her about my health issues, she would have told me to go to the ER. I know why I didn't tell her, but I wonder why I hoped for care from people who have demonstrated no care for me instead of those that do. She was so worried for me. We had planned a fun day trip to see a flower festival next spring. I drove home on my first week of the second cycle, and for the first time, I was exhausted. I had to pull over and rest for an hour before I felt well enough to finish driving home. I was so exhausted, I didn't want to move, and I sat in my driveway. It hit me then that I didn't have stage 2. I had lung cancer. I could pass. I just started crying. It hit me then that I had lung cancer. This could end my life. I just started sobbing. All I could think of was the stupid flower festival. I haven't lived my life. I love my husband, my family, my friends, but I don't want to be married to him. I don't want to cater to my family, and I'm tired of my friends. I want to live. I want to be well enough to drive and see the flower festival with Nancy. It's only been a week and a half of change, and my emotions have gone from low to really high and back to low. I've been dreaming of my life after I beat cancer and leave my husband and friends. I don't even know if I can stick with it, but I am determined to be strong. My therapist says change from within can start small or big. She's proud of me and thinks I can get through this. OP is married to a guy who cares more about his ex than her. That's messed up. She needs to find someone who actually cares about her. Had to do a double take at the first mention of the love of his life, thinking I completely skipped over something big. Nope, just dropped it in so casually. What a messed up situation. Can't even rely on him to take her to medical appointments. Until the last post where OP finally broke down, it did not feel like this was written by a human being. The clinical way she describes her husband being blatantly in love with another woman for their entire marriage like it's just a hobby, the detachment she describes encouraging him to pursue her, and how he was only saddened by her diagnosis because it reminded him of the other woman's mortality. That's messed up. This poor woman basically trained herself into total apathy to match how little care everyone else gives her. How could literally everybody who she should be closest to fail her so miserably? Forget everybody in her life but Nancy. Patient's boyfriend is mad he has to pick up his own Uber Eats. I work in a high-level hospital as an ICU nurse, and my managers are fantastic with staffing, meaning if you have a crashing, heavily workload patient, they'll make the other patient you have an easier one so you can focus on the sick one. For a background, ICU nurses have 2 patients and we specialize in critical thinking, whereas the telefloor is the normal part of the hospital people think about and holds less sick people who don't need as much attention. So these nurses have 6 patients and specialize in tasks and prioritization. So the beginning of my shift after report, I show my face and say hi to my less sick patient who is doing fantastic and just waiting for transport to take her to the telebed. I say I'll be back around 9 p.m. in 2 hours, unless she needs me for something else, so this gives me the time to stabilize the sick patient next door. Unfortunately, the sick patient in room 1 starts coding, and the team is actively doing CPR. Crash cart in the hallway, 3 doctors there, whole team trying to save this young guy. My team is working on meds, incubating, keeping compressions going, etc., while I'm talking with doctors about what could have caused it, and I'm halfway outside the room for the healthier patient in room number 2. She sees me through the window, presses the call light, and I ignore it because I have what should have been obviously a very pressing matter. Her boyfriend ends up opening the door and standing in the hallway to just stare at me with his arms crossed. Just to give them the benefit of the doubt that she could be concerned about her health, I say, "Is everything all right?" And he goes, and tries to lead me inside. Of course, I only pay attention to him when the docs go into room 1 to brainstorm on their own and assess where to go if we get this guy back. I look back through the window of room 1 and I realize I can give them 5 seconds to make sure nothing funky is going on. So she says, "Can you get my Uber Eats order? It just said it arrived downstairs." I swear I could have had a stroke from high blood pressure at that moment. So I kindly say, "I'm sorry, I'm busy with another critical patient. Could you?" I look to the boyfriend who's plopped in the recliner with his feet up watching Netflix again on his phone. "Go get it for her?" And he goes, "I'd rather not." Oh, good sir, you don't want to? You saw the mess next door through the window, me talking seriously with 3 doctors, and the hot mess of people outside your room as we try to save a guy's life. So I tell him, I can't. The entire team is actively trying to save someone, and none of us are available to leave. So either you get it, or I can have someone get saltines for you instead. He sighs, gets up slowly, and then says, "Fine, I guess I'll go get it then," as I turn to head back into room 1. Dude literally has to turn his shoulders to slide through the massive group of people, still upset he has to take one elevator down. When they get moved to another room around 10, he's speaking loudly on the phone to someone saying things like, "The nurses are rude. They won't even get food for their patients," etc. The icing on the cake? She had just gotten off an insulin drip for being in a diabetic coma. Never have I met a more entitled person who put having to walk and get their own food delivery above someone else's life. I think anyone who's spent years working in a hospital will totally relate to this story.
Yeah, before I worked at a hospital, I never had a clue how entitled people could actually be in real life.
Stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend lands them homeless, careless, and adrift. I call my stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend Wreck-It Ralph. No relation to the trademark cartoon, just coincidental naming. He has a tendency to break, ruin, and tear up everything he touches. My stepdaughter, who's actually a sweet and endearing young woman who I love dearly, has, like many younger women with self-esteem issues, allowed herself to be led astray by this jerk. In the year they've been together, she's lost everything. But at 23, she's old enough to learn her lessons without us parents coming to her rescue until she gets rid of Ralph and gets back on track. When they first got together, they lived with her dad and myself for a few months. It very quickly became apparent that Ralph had a chip on his shoulder when it came to me. He would carry tales to my husband, causing us to argue, despite my husband telling Ralph many times that this was my house and everything in it was mine. Ralph would keep asking my husband, not me, if he could have this or that, and that's if he asked. He kept getting more and more animals, despite us telling him no more. Neither were taking care of the ones they had. They weren't buying dog or cat food and cat litter. My husband and I were. They weren't picking up the messes, and they weren't training them, allowing them to tear up our belongings. The only work these two would do is door delivery. Her job with a daily payout, just to get enough money for Ralph to use for his recreational activities every day, along with eating at fast food restaurants. Ralph's chip on his shoulder when it came to me was such that they brought my husband a soda one night, walking in the back door right past me, calling out loudly, "We got you your favorite soda," to my husband in the living room with zero inclusion to me. Another example is my stepdaughter asking if she could use my debit card to go get the 4 of us drinks at a local convenience store one hot day. My husband and I were unloading stuff from the truck and trailer in the backyard, which was no problem. However, when checking my account, they spent $20 on food for Ralph without asking. The end came when I told them they had to replace the bedroom door their dog chewed the bottom out of, and refused to allow the pit bull they wanted to rescue, even though it had a bite history, to enter my home. They moved to my stepdaughter's mother's home at that point. During their time there, my stepdaughter kept getting tickets in her car, which is only registered to my husband. They weren't paying their insurance, which I had bought my stepdaughter her own policy and paid the startup out of my money when they lived with us, and didn't pay the plate renewal. Now her license is suspended and it cost my husband and I $600 to get the plates. Again, in his name only, unsuspended. Plus, they had damaged the car and it needed repairs, so he took it from there. Before her license was suspended, but after the police took the plates from her car, my husband let her use his truck, which was on my insurance policy. Ralph drove it, and he has no license and blew the motor in it. It's now sitting and can't be used. I told my husband I would put the car on my insurance for him, but only if he drove it. If he returned it to them, I was canceling the insurance, which I stood by. Nevertheless, Ralph called daily demanding my husband return the car to them once it was legal and fixed. After 3 weeks, my husband finally said, "Look, you jerk, I don't know what it is that you think you're trying to accomplish here, but you're not demanding anything from me, and you're not getting the car back. I may have originally bought it for her because she got with you, but it is my car in my name, and I'm keeping it in lieu of the truck you ruined. Don't call me again about the car. Got it?" We'd been hearing of ongoing disputes between my husband's ex and Ralph. Things got so bad there that Ralph told my husband's ex-wife to pack her crap and get out of her own home. Another time he told her to shut up and remember who she's talking to. So we all decided it was time to let our daughter hit rock bottom since she wasn't seeing how Ralph had taken her from being a sweet, lovable, well-liked, and responsible girl in a college nursing program to this person with a criminal history and no prospects at the moment. My husband's ex-wife moved in with her boyfriend, turning the power off at the home that she had been renting, and told her former landlord, whom she was actually longtime friends with, she wouldn't allow it to affect their friendship if he evicted them for squatting, since neither were on her lease to begin with. When my stepdaughter called, wanting to come back, yeah, right, you ain't letting her come back with that idiot. My husband told her that she could, but not with Ralph. Now they are staying at a homeless shelter in the town where Ralph's mom lives, and Ralph's mom won't let them live with her either. We hate to see her go through this, but this entitled Ralph she won't let go of has really brought her down, and she can do so much better. This guy actually told us once he couldn't work at a factory that he interviewed at because it was climate controlled and his heart condition won't allow that. Then argued with me and my husband that climate controlled meant controlled by the climate, so it was hot in the summer and cold in the winter. We haven't seen him hold a job or do anything useful or productive since they've been together. Just demand stuff from us and use the people who love the girl he's becoming a Klingon to. Ralph is an absolute jerk. I'd go so far as formally trespassing him from your property and going no contact with him. Your daughter will at some stage hopefully see sense, but it may take time. I wish I could find a factory that had both air and heat. Ralph reminds me of my brother, lazy and entitled. Ralph is the scum of the earth, and we need to teach our kids to be aware of losers like this. Also, we need to teach our kids to not become losers like this. Sorry, OP, this guy sucks big time. I hope your stepdaughter's finally able to chew her way to freedom sometime soon for her own sake. I can't imagine she's happy with him. What exactly does he bring to the table besides heartache and pain? He's destroying all of her relationships and cutting her off from everyone that loves her. She has to be miserable. Tale as old as time. She rejects guy after guy for all the wrong reasons. I see you as a brother. I like you as a friend. You're just not the type of guy I usually like. Next thing you know, she's with some guy like this and refuses to leave him. Meanwhile, the good dudes out there can't get a date to save their life because we aren't convicted criminals with tattoos that do recreational activities and treat people like crap. My brat stepdaughter is demanding I pay for her birthday dinner even though she hates me and won't allow me to attend. My wife has 3 kids, 2 sons who are 20 and 19, and a daughter who's 16 from her previous relationship. Their father was an addict, but now he's clean. He doesn't have custody, but does visit when he can. My stepsons and I are not close, but they've been respectful to me at least. My stepdaughter, who I'll call S, has not. She genuinely doesn't even like me. She refuses to talk to me. She doesn't want me attending her shows. She doesn't accept any gifts that I've given her, usually giving them away or tossing them in the trash. She doesn't listen to me if I'm the one enforcing rules when she isn't grounded. It has to be her mom who puts her foot down. She doesn't listen to me if I'm the one enforcing rules when she's grounded. It has to be her mom who puts her foot down. Her birthday was last week. She had testing that day. My wife wanted her birthday to be extra special because she was turning 16 and had good grades. S wanted to go to an expensive restaurant with her family. I was not allowed to come according to her, but she wanted me to give her mom the money to pay for it. I told her I would not pay. She got upset and told me it was the least I could do and how she asks for so little, but I stood my ground. Her mom took her to a less expensive restaurant. S is now upset with me. Her granddad is also upset with me, telling me I should have paid and that it was her 16th birthday that I ruined. My wife is on my side and says there's no winning with her. I know how important becoming 16 is, and I feel bad for not getting her a gift at all. So, am I the jerk? You sound completely insufferable. If all 3 of her kids don't like you, I'm sure they have their reasons. You acting immature by refusing to pay for her birthday dinner is just the icing on the cake. You are not entitled to attend her birthday events. I'm disappointed in their mother for being with someone who is as controlling and manipulative as you are. Don't be surprised when she leaves you for someone who respects her and her kids. I feel like there's more going on here than we're being told. I mean, she doesn't just dislike him, she actively hates him. And the sons don't seem to like him either. They're just more mature about it being older. So, what's the deal? Aw, widow baby is sad that his stepdaughter doesn't want him at her birthday dinner. Widow man gonna throw a fit now. How fragile your ego must be to pick a fight with a 16-year-old. If you can't handle being a stepdad, then quit wasting this woman and her family's time. Go become one of those crazy dog guys who copes with his loneliness by getting 2 big dogs and acting like they're your kids. Not the jerk. Bro, this is why you don't date single moms. If she was widowed and left behind, then that's one thing. But if she chose to leave her man the way it pretty much always happens, you can bet your butt that those kids are going to be taught to resent men, and they will take out that aggression on you. Any guys still getting into relationships with single moms these days, you honestly deserve what you're setting yourself up for. Life isn't like the romantic comedy movies you were fed your whole life. You don't even want to know the things I've seen, the things I've done, or the things I would do again if I had to. I wonder how many bodies this guy has buried under his house. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his stepdaughter? Please let us know.
Listen, homeboy, you need to run and run fast. Are you really willing to deal with this brat for possibly the rest of your life?
Cool it, Karen. People have been getting upset about the things you've been saying recently.
I don't care. It's a free country.
My Karen daughter told me to not expect her to take care of me in my old age, so now I'm cutting her off financially. I'm 44, male. My daughter, who's 23, doesn't get along with my wife. We've been married for 2 years now. My wife and I got together when she was at college. My ex-wife doesn't like her, and I have a feeling that's the biggest part of it. My daughter can't really seem to point to what she doesn't like, just general, "She's stuck up," or "She always has an attitude." My daughter recently graduated, and we've been helping her pay bills here and there as she looked for a job in her field. We usually give her around $1,000 a month. Recently, she was at our house, and her and my wife got into an argument over my daughter leaving a mess in the kitchen. As I tried to diffuse things, my daughter started screaming that I was a jerk for siding with my wife and that she was going to remember this when I'm older and I need her. This floored me. At this point, I just walked away. After giving it some thought, I realized that I don't want my future to be in the hands of someone else, especially someone who intends to lord that over me. I would never place the expectation on her to take care of me, but I do feel like since she has made it clear that any support from her in my old age would come with strings, it makes more sense to invest that money so that my later years will be paid for. So, would I be the jerk if I redirect that $1,000 a month into my retirement account versus helping my daughter? Not the jerk. Tell her you need to divert the funds you are giving her to ensure you're cared for as you age. So your daughter made a mess. Your wife told her to clean it up and she refused, and then she got upset about it? You raised a winner there, OP. Not the jerk. Not the jerk, but $1,000 a month would buy you a pretty nice long-term care insurance policy. I'm just saying. Not the jerk. I don't want or expect anybody to take care of me in my old age, but her general attitude would be the end of any financial support. You simply do not bite the hand that feeds you. First time I dressed up for a double date and my friend didn't like it. My friend Joel, who's 20, asked me, 21 male, to join him for a double date with Jean, who's 20, and her friend Sam, who's 19. Joel got a date with Jean, but she wanted to make it a double date as she wanted to introduce Sam to the dating scene in a more friendly kind of way. I agreed to it, but Sam wasn't amused by the idea of me being her date, but agreed because she was happy with just the experience. Why? Well, me and Joel are 2 totally different types of guys. He's the charming and athletic guy, while I'm the chubby and more reserved one. Doesn't help that I'm balding this early in life. The times I have met her at university has been while I'm wearing the same clothes. I have a set of clothes only for university, sort of like a self-imposed uniform. Every day is different, but I repeat weekly. So yesterday I got my hair cut as low as possible without going into shaving, fixed my beard, and I have to say I was looking mighty fine. Got out my brand new clothes. Now today we had our double date after 2 p.m. I arrived late, but only by 5 minutes. Joel was texting me like crazy until I arrived holding a rose for Sam. I'm a bit corny, but I thought it would be a nice gesture. Joel wasn't happy for some reason. Jean looked surprised, but Sam, she smiled widely and her eyes sparkled a bit. We start our date and Sam and I are having a bit of a blast. We decided to go out bowling before we go for ice cream in recommendation from Sam. We got along, but not really enough to say that I like her more than a friend. Maybe a second date, solo this time, would be nice. As we're hanging out, I could feel glances from Joel and small smiles from Jean. I know Jean is smiling because Sam is having fun, but I didn't know why Joel was so angry with me. After the date, Joel unloaded on me, how I was cringe for bringing Sam a rose, that I was there to entertain Sam, not distract Jean from him, that I dressed too formal and too fancy. I was only wearing a white shirt, flannel overshirt, and jeans with my Converse. He also said I should have stayed at home if I was going to act like I did at the date. I just talked with Sam, shared a meal with her, and went to get her favorite ice cream from her favorite store. He was there, and Jean was 100% on board with the ideas. I barely talked with Jean. He had all the playing field for himself. Not my fault Jean was more interested in seeing her friend happy. Sounds like he was annoyed that you showed him up on the date. He's probably used to attention and thought being next to you would make him look better. Sorry, just going based off your description. Girls care way more about thoughts and effort than just attractive. That's why you are getting the attention of both of them. OP. I knew from the start he was planning to use me to look better, but I wasn't expecting him to be rude about his date with Jane and blaming it on me. Maybe the only reason Jean agreed to date your friend was so she'd have an excuse to get Sam out on a date with somebody, and Joel is salty about it. Don't worry about it. It sounds like you and Sam had a nice time, and Jean is happy that Sam enjoyed herself. Joel is being insecure. You absolutely should ask Sam to go out solo, even if you decide she's not for you romantically. It sounds like you guys get along well and could be great friends. OP. I think I will ask her out. She mentioned she was more into retro gaming, and we have an old school arcade close to campus. Update. Let's start with my friend Joel. I explained to him what had happened and how it made me feel, and he apologized. A bit of a forced apology, but it's been 2 weeks, and he's actually changed a bit. I explained that he should be more attentive with his dates and took it to heart. He is still the same guy, but now he at least tries to actually connect with his date. Jean, well, not much. We started hanging out, but I don't know how much happened with her and Joel. Just that it didn't work out. I will take that. Now Sam, well, I asked her out for another date, this time a solo date, and she said yes with a big grin on her face. We went to the arcade and we had a blast, maybe too much. That night I returned to my apartment at 3 a.m. and exhausted. That was a night filled with firsts. With that said, we hit it off. I thought we wouldn't click, but after a few drinks and karaoke, we really made her loosen up a bit, and we talked for another 3 hours on our second date, had 2 more dates, and now we are officially dating. I showed her my last post, and she was amused by all of your replies. I threw a low blow at my wife, and now she's barely talking to me. Please help. Me, 29 male, and my wife, Ali, who's 27, we've been together for 6 years and married for 3. We met in college, and at first, my mom, who was always a stay-at-home mom, was worried that my wife wouldn't make a good housewife. However, as the years went on, she saw how my Ali and I made such a beautiful partnership. She saw how we supported each other through college and grad school, job hunting, financial issues, health problems, and more. She saw how I would pick up the slack when Ali was busy and how Ali did the same for me. We also split our chores at home. My mom now absolutely adores her. Since I only have brothers, and I'm the only married one, she thinks of her as the daughter she never had. Now on to the issue. This past Monday, I was just having a terrible day. The kind of day where everything goes wrong. I got a flat tire on my way to work. I was late to work. My boss yelled at me. I dropped my lunch. I left my wallet at home. It was just an awful day. I got home and I was starving. Ali was cooking dinner. She seemed to have been anxious because when she is, she starts talking a lot and really fast, which I normally find sweet and endearing, but not that day. So she starts going on and on about her day.
I just wanted her to get done with dinner. So out of nowhere, I just yelled, "Do you ever stop talking? Boy, was Mom ever right." She asks, right about what? Instead of keeping my mouth shut, I tell her about my mom's concerns about her not making a good housewife. Her eyes rolled up with tears, and she stopped talking, finished cooking dinner, and went straight to the shower and then to bed. Now she wakes up before me and leaves breakfast and lunch ready, comes home and leaves dinner ready, and goes straight to shower and bed. She doesn't want to talk to me or watch TV or anything. If I ask or say anything, she gives me 1 or 2 word responses. She doesn't even look angry at me, just defeated. I don't know how to fix this. I feel like flowers and chocolates won't cut it here. Plus, I don't even know why I said that, because my mom doesn't even have those concerns anymore. Please help. Update. I want to clarify and answer some questions. Pregnancy. Ali is not pregnant. Before getting married, we decided to wait until our careers were established for 2 years before we started trying for a baby. That would be next year. We're both very careful. Plus, I asked and she said she wasn't. Her doing all of the chores. She does not do all of the chores. Before we moved in together, we made a list of all the chores that needed to be done. Then we flipped a coin and chose the chore we wanted. Then we alternated on choosing the rest of them. She chose the first one, which was cooking. She cooks and I clean the kitchen. She grocery shops and I put the groceries away and so on. So even with the fight, she kept doing her chores and I kept doing mine. Although I would fully understand if she stopped doing them altogether. Me apologizing. I did try to apologize multiple times, but she said she didn't want to hear it. I just wanted to give her space, but should have tried harder. I read every single comment and message. It was hard, but I asked for advice. I 1000% got what I deserved. Now, on to what I've done to begin fixing this mess that I've made. As some of you suggested, I wrote a heartfelt letter explaining myself and sincerely apologizing and begging her to speak to me whenever she felt comfortable. She said she would go to the guest room, and I said no, that I would go there because this fight was entirely my fault and would only return if and when she allowed me to or felt comfortable. I called my mom and let her know what I did. She rightfully tore me a new one, then came by the next day with some gifts for Ali. She apologized for ever feeling that way and assured her that she didn't feel that way now, that she truly loves her like a daughter. They spoke more, but I wasn't privy to that conversation. As some of you suggested, I made an appointment with a counselor so I can learn how to properly deal with my anger and not lash out at innocent people. On Reddit's suggestion as well, I printed out a list of marriage counselors in the area who accept our health insurance. I gave her the list and said that if she's willing to go with me, all she has to do is choose a name and I'll do all the legwork. She said she's willing to go and she chose a name. She works in the mental health field and chose someone who is reputable in our area. She already sees her own therapist and is working through this with her, I assume. I was able to talk to her and she said that she was really hurt by what I said, that she was questioning what my family, especially my mom, and what I thought of her as a wife and a person. Like all the memories with my family are tainted now. Were they pretending? Was it just my mom? What are they saying behind her back during special occasions? If we have kids, will they think she's a bad mom too? When my mom helps her with something, is it to be nice or because she thinks she's not capable? That she was angry I didn't trust her with those concerns earlier in the relationship, so she could either address them with my mom or even see what I thought as well, because she might have made a different choice about marrying into a family that had doubts about her. She also said that she was already anxious about a hard day at work, and I yelled out of nowhere. She told me that if I had just communicated to her that I had a bad day and was hungry, she would have just made me a snack and told me to chill while dinner was ready. But instead, I just lashed out. Or if I had texted her earlier, she would have ordered me lunch or given me her card number so I could order something for myself. Also said it was about teaching me a lesson about what a quiet housewife looks like and that it's obviously not something I want. And that if it is, she's obviously not someone I'm going to get it from. So to make a choice about what I want. I told her I want to be with her. I don't want a housewife. I want her as my partner for the rest of my life. I just felt like a complete jerk because I just had to communicate and she would have been there for me. I had no right to hurt her. She was a partner and I was a jerk. As you guys also suggested, I've been taking over her chores as well as I can because my cooking is definitely not as good as hers and spoiling her with her favorite things and foods. I've also been doing extra things like drawing baths, serving her favorite juice, lighting candles, and playing her favorite crime podcast so she can relax when she comes home from work. I'm going to keep working together and see what happens. I obviously messed up here. I'm trying to fix it and I'm hopeful. It's not all unicorns and rainbows, but I'm going to do whatever it takes to repair and rebuild what I ruined. If it ends up not working, then I'll know, because I was a big jerk who didn't properly communicate and didn't keep his mouth shut. As someone whose wife has at times had anger issues and said things that were out of line, I can tell you with absolute certainty that this woman will never forget what he said to her. Forgive, sure, but not forget. I'm glad OP is making up for it, but in the case they eventually divorce, he will still have deserved it. If I was in OP's reach, I would have torn him a new one. Boy, have you lost your mind, cause I'll help you find it. What you looking for? Ain't nobody gonna help you out there. Jesus could come through that door. He's not going to help you. Wow, the level of pathetic here is insane. You were in a bad mood, said some stuff that hurt her feelings. You apologized and she needs to get over it. Instead, she's got you worshiping the ground she walks on. Men who have a little respect for themselves don't bow down to someone with a chip on their shoulder like your wife. When did men lose their ability to be men and instead start acting like complete wimps? Edit. I'm a woman. My husband and I have both said hurtful things throughout our 20 years together. But guess what? We move on. We get over it, like adults are supposed to. And if my husband ever acts as pathetic as this guy is, I would make him go to the doctor and get his hormones checked. No man with proper testosterone levels should ever be acting this sad and pathetic. Job interviewer ghosted me and then had one of his employees tell me to go home, so I did. While I do have a job already, I thought it would be worthwhile to see what else is out there. A week ago, I found a job posting on Indeed. It sounded like a good gig, paid good, and is work that I like doing. The only downfall is that it's a 35-minute drive out of town. I had a good conversation with the business owner on the website, and he seemed like a good guy. I explained that I work every day from 7 a.m. to 3:10 p.m., and he understood that there's a bit of a commute to his shop. He asked me if I could meet up with him at 3:30. I told him that it isn't possible as I was done at 3:10 and can't do a 35-minute drive in under 20 minutes. I explained that I would be leaving town at 3:10 to come and see him, and that I would see him when I get there, somewhere around 3:40ish. So I gave him my phone number just in case something were to change, and we left on a good note. I drove rather fast, getting there at 3:37, happy that I got there in under 35 minutes. I show up, business closed. I figured he was somewhere nearby, so I get out of my vehicle to search. I look over to my left to see two teenagers moving some materials. I approached them and asked them where their boss was while explaining that I had a meeting with him. One of them informs me that he just left a few minutes ago, but could call him back to come meet me. He calls his boss, saying who I am. The teenager chuckles, says, "Okay," with a "you gotta be kidding me" look on his face, then he hangs up. Teenager tells me, "He says to go home." I asked him to repeat himself. "He said go home." This time he's laughing uncomfortably. I now have another 35-minute drive ahead of me, and I'm very irritated. I decided to leave as his boss instructed, but instead of driving the gravel driveway back onto the highway, the way I came in from, I decided to leave him a present to remember me by. Some donut tire skid marks on his front lawn as I tore out of there. 30 minutes after that, he felt the need to reach out to me and introduce himself via a private number, but I let it go to voicemail as I was driving, which upon listening to later on, further proved to me that all his negative Google reviews were more than likely all true, and that this person isn't someone to do business with anyways. I'm 31, female. My husband, who's 34, bought me the wrong jewelry for our anniversary. I know the title makes me sound entitled, but hear me out. We had our wedding anniversary this week, but we delayed celebrating until this weekend. We do traditional gifts for anniversaries, and this year is flowers and fruit. He's not great with gifts and asked for ideas last month, and I sent him a link to an Etsy shop that makes birth flower jewelry, and I told him I'd like something with our son's birth flower. I also let him know he could just get me flowers or anything else, and that would be fine as well. For his gift, I picked up chocolate-covered strawberries, wine, and went to a fancy cheese shop to get some fruit-infused cheeses, meat, etc. to make a really nice charcuterie spread for tonight. I'm going to create a picnic in our living room, and I think it's going to be really cute. I also got him a card and wrote a heartfelt message, just for reference. I assumed that he had figured my gift out before our anniversary, so imagine my surprise when I opened a Prime box and found a jewelry box. I didn't open it, but it was labeled birth flower necklace, so it was obvious. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed, but I'm not sure if I'm being unfair and could use some perspective. 1. If he ordered the gift via Prime, that means that he didn't order it until after the actual day of our anniversary had passed. 2. The box was labeled with my birth flower, not my son's, which is not what I wanted. 3. The The box and labeling looks very cheap, and looking on Amazon, I think he ordered a low-quality piece. Think Chinese Amazon front, less than $20. When we were younger, I would wear jewelry like this, and it would always fall apart, color my skin, and/or tarnish quickly. I'm a bit upset. I spent a significant amount of consideration and money on his gift, and he totally flubbed mine in a way that specifically seems very uncaring. He's going to be giving me the gift tonight, so I have about 4 hours to figure out how I'm going to respond. I don't want to ruin our plans with a fight, but I'd like to gently tell him that I'd rather he order something I will actually wear. Or should I just thank him and not say anything and just not wear the gift? Am I being entitled? Update. Based on some of the feedback saying that my gift was actually for both of us, I didn't set out the chocolate-covered strawberries with the rest of the food and wine. I gave them to him separately and made sure to let him know they were just for him and he didn't need a share. He did insist on me having to so that I could try each flavor, and then ate the remaining 10 all by himself, so safe to say it was a hit. The charcuterie spread was excessive and delicious. He asked me to explain the various items and was an especially big fan of the huckleberry goat cheese spread. Some commenters asked about my husband's love language. It's both physical touch and quality time. The nice thing about the picnic was that we could cuddle while we ate, and when the food and wine was gone, we celebrated like mommies and daddies do. A surprising amount of people wanted to make sure that was part of the gift as well. Y'all are weird. A few commenters also pointed out that I didn't know if the necklace was all he had done, and they were right. In addition to the necklace, he had also bought flowers and my favorite wine. I didn't say anything about the necklace until this morning. I told him I loved that he remembered I wanted a birth flower gift, but would he be okay if I exchanged it for one with our son's flower instead? He responded, "Don't worry about it. It was really cheap. I just remembered this week that you had mentioned it, so I figured I should get something like that. If you want something else, let's just order it." I should have known better than to spend time stressed about the conversation. He's a very laid-back guy. So yeah, a great night. I'll just add a gentle reminder that these posts don't paint the full picture of a person, a relationship, or a life. My husband and I are very happy. We have an amazing life together, and he's a great partner to me and a father to our son. I'm not some evil bridezilla like someone mentioned, and he doesn't mistreat me. We decided last night that we're ready to start planning baby number 2, so I'm excited to continue building our life together. Be well, Reddit. Am I the jerk for telling my mom I think she should stop asking her older kids if my sister, brother, and I can stay with one of them? My mom has 2 older kids, my half-siblings, from her first marriage. They're twins, and they're both 28 now. Their dad passed when they were 6, and my mom remarried when they were 10. I, 16 female, came along 2 years later. My sister, who's 15, a year after me, and my brother, who's 13, 2 years after her. I have never felt close to my half-brother and sister. Being twins, they were always super tight and had a bond that none of us could fully understand. Sometimes it made me feel a little sad that they were so close to each other, but not us. I used to think that this was the reason we weren't close, but then I started to suspect it was more to do with us being half-siblings and having a different dad. They were okay with us. They weren't bullying us or anything. They just never put any effort into the relationship and were always distant when we would try to get closer to them. Once they moved out, we hardly ever saw them. I maybe saw them once or twice a year usually, and even then it's rare for us to interact because they will always say hi and move on to talking to other people or doing things. We're not on each other's social media, though I tried. I don't have either of their numbers or anything. It's just how it is. Honestly, I stopped seeing them as half-siblings a while ago, and they really do feel more like my mom's other kids due to the lack of relationship. A few years ago, my siblings and I wanted to go stay with them for a weekend. They lived together until a year or 2 ago, but they didn't want us there. I remembered finding out, I'm getting some Game of Thrones vibes here. Lannisters much? I remember finding out through an aunt that they had had some of their paternal cousins over for an entire weekend sleepover. It made me sad because their cousins would have been close to my age, and I didn't understand why they would spend time with them, but not us. So there's the background, and I've grown to accept and understand that they didn't need to be any closer to us if they didn't want to be. It doesn't make me sad anymore. Anyway, my parents were invited to a destination wedding, and my mom asked my half-siblings if one of them could let us 3 stay over for the 4 days that they'd be gone. They said no, and she would need to find another solution. Mom asked them a few more times, and when I realized how often she was asking, I told her I thought she should stop asking them. Mom asked me why, and I told her that they never wanted to be around us, so I don't think they would want us in their space either. I pointed out Grandma and Grandpa would let us stay, and she asked me why I'd say they, half-siblings, never wanted us around. I told her they have never made the effort. have never kept in contact with us and invited our cousins to stay with them, but never us. Mom told me that all of that was the reason she should ask them and try to convince them to spend time with us. I told her it wasn't going to work and I didn't really want to stay with either of them now. She told me I should be appreciative and stop telling her to stop. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The more your mom tries to force it, the more they will push you away. OP. They can't really push us away anymore, but I could see them pushing her away if she keeps asking. They at least talk to her a lot over the phone and stuff, but I'm sure they'll talk less if she keeps pressing the issue. Not the jerk. Your mom is forcing this relationship between you and them. It's just going to make them push you away even more. Parents need to understand that after a point, you can't force relationships and that it's going to make things worse. I hope you and your siblings have fun staying at your grandparents'. My husband, 30 male, and I, 29 female, had a bad argument and I'm staying at a hotel. My husband and I got into an argument today because he decided to clean the washer by dumping a bunch of vinegar and bleach in it. I didn't realize what he had done until I smelled something like chlorine. He told me what he had put in it. I panicked, set the washer to drain, and ran around the house opening the windows. He then proceeds to roll his eyes and tells me that it's perfectly safe and not toxic at all, and that I was being dramatic. I literally had to pull up Google and show him that vinegar plus bleach equals toxic fumes. He continued to roll his eyes and shrug it off and make me feel stupid for reacting the way I did. Then he says, "Well, if your dad didn't stink up our washer doing his laundry here, I wouldn't even have had to clean it." For context, my dad is disabled from a stroke, but is still able to live independently, and we help him out by doing his laundry at our house when he visits. That's something he's not able to do himself, and he doesn't have a washer or dryer in his apartment. My hubby gets along with my dad and has never complained in any way related to him before. This was just such a weird, out-of-the-blue thing for him to say. The gaslighting about the toxic fumes, plus the insult towards my dad, had me livid at this point. I did my best to explain why I was mad, and he kept saying things like, "I don't care," and "It's not a big deal." I decided to pack a bag to stay at a hotel. He followed me into our room as I was packing and starts yelling and bringing up prior arguments from literally years ago. I ignored him and simply said, "I'm not entertaining this behavior any longer." Right as I was walking out the door, he just yelled, "Forget yeah." So here I am staying at a hotel for the night. He hasn't texted or called to check on me at all. I sent my location to my sister for safety purposes since apparently he doesn't care. That's not how I expected the day to go. My partner doesn't yell at me and I don't yell at him. We get snarly, snappy, and short-tempered, but we don't call each other names. What he did is a big deal, but him invalidating your feelings and getting mad at you is what's going to end your marriage. You need marriage counseling immediately or you're headed to Divorce City. I'm struggling to understand why this guy couldn't have just said, "Oh crap, I had no idea. Let me get the fan and clear this out." But here's the thing, we know this isn't the first time he's behaved this way. Yeah, people don't just wake up in the middle of a 10-year marriage and suddenly act like this. Unless this guy has an undiagnosed brain tumor, he's probably like this fairly regularly. My Karen neighbor keeps cutting my roses, so I call the cops on her. So I, 25 female, have lived in my house my entire life. My parents moved and gave it to me when I turned 21. Ever since I was born, we've had roses in our yard. Well, I recently got a new neighbor, 31 female, and she is apparently allergic to my roses. She lives right next door and won't stop complaining about my roses. I don't want to get rid of them. I think she should have considered that I had plants when she first went to buy the house. It's not like it was the cheapest option or anything. I live in a pretty expensive neighborhood. A few days ago, I came home from work and found pieces of my rose bush on the ground. At first, I thought nothing of it, but it kept happening. I decided to get a camera in my front yard so I would know what was going on. I came home yesterday and checked the cameras, and there she is. Clear as day, you could see my neighbor, wearing some mask, chopping away at my bushes. I was obviously outraged when I saw the footage and went up to her door and threatened to call the police if I saw her do it again. She called me selfish and rude and said that I should have taken the roses out because she was allergic. I'm not getting rid of my roses. It's not my fault she's allergic and she chose to buy a house next to someone who grows roses. She said that she could get hurt, but I don't think it's my problem. Am I the jerk? Edit. So I called the cops last night, and I'm going to be pressing charges for trespassing and destruction of private property. I also asked her why she didn't just use some kind of anti-allergen, and she said she couldn't trust doctors with her diagnosis, whatever that means. Not the jerk. You need to call the police regardless and show them the video because she's not going to stop. I see a couple of things that your neighbor could be in trouble for. 1, trespassing, and 2, destruction of private property. Since you have video proof, this should be a quick and easy case. Please call the police and report it. Get an estimate of the cost of the damaged plants and take her to small claims court for replacement costs. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the neighbor? Please let us know. I'd be petty and plant tons of more rose bushes right next to the fence line. Am I the jerk for not letting my daughter use her college fund for a wedding or a house? Backstory. I, 43, female, have 4 kids. Elle, who's 22, female. Katie, who's 17. Cam, who's 15. And Isla, who's 5. And I'm also currently pregnant. Me and my husband, who's 50, started adding to college funds every month for each of our kids, pretty much as soon as we found out that we were pregnant. I won't say the exact amount, but my husband has an excellent job, so it's more than most. We never told our kids because it just didn't feel necessary. Elle got pregnant when she turned 16 and ended up dropping out of school. I was very disappointed, but I understood. However, I was under the impression she would return later, but she has no plans to. The dad stuck around, and now they have one more kid who's 3 and one on the way. They're engaged, but they don't plan to marry until they can afford it. They were doing okay financially for a while, but due to the market right now, they've been struggling because Elle can't get a job since she doesn't have a diploma, so we've been loaning them money. Katie is a senior and just got accepted into college. We've been setting everything up, and obviously she knows about the fund now. Katie and Elle were talking, and she was telling Elle about the school, and Elle asked how she was planning on paying for it. Katie responded, "My college fund." I was in the room while they were talking, and this made me panic. We had just planned on splitting it between the remaining 4 since we knew they were going to college. Elle asked me if they all had one, and I wasn't going to lie, so I said yes. She got really excited and went to call her fiancé and tell him the good news. I was confused and told her she couldn't have the money. She asked why, and I said it was for school. She got upset and left my house. The next day, I get a call from Elle. She was crying and begging me to let her have the funds so she could finally afford a down payment and maybe even a wedding. I told her she could have the money if she went back to school, and whatever money was left over she could use for whatever she wanted. She got super mad and started yelling at me and saying it's her money. I told her that it was my money, and these were my decisions, and she hung up. Now we're being harassed by her fiancé's family. They aren't as fortunate as us, calling us jerks and a lot of other names, saying it's all going to go to waste if she doesn't use it. We're setting her up for failure, etc. Now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk, because my dad said we should just give her the money as we saved it for her after all. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I'm going to be downvoted a million times, but hear me out. You put money into a college fund for each kid. The whole purpose was to help with their education. It's a generous fund, and not everyone is able to do that for one kid, let alone 4, plus one on the way. She made other choices, and that's fine. Just because she was unaware of the college fund doesn't mean she can just collect it now after finding out. She was happy with her relationship until she found out, right? But can you find a compromise to smooth everything over? Say she gets her GED and 1 to 2 years in a community college or trade school, graduating with an AA or certification when the rest of the money is hers. Would that satisfy you and your husband? Plenty of stay-at-home moms have put themselves through nursing or dental assistant or hygiene school, for example, with only grants and loans, and did it through sheer hard work and determination. Her fiancé's family had absolutely no business sticking their noses into this. I find that appalling and disrespectful. They need to be told to butt out. I agree. Find a middle ground. She can't move forward in life without a GED, so set some conditions around that. Once she completes her GED, you will give her a certain percentage of the money. Once she completes an associate's or certificate program, you will give her the remaining amount. She should also qualify for financial aid. OP, not the jerk. But again, I think a compromise is the way to go. I also don't think expecting her to go to the traditional college is feasible. Everyone sucks here. Should she feel automatically entitled to the money? No, but that's about the only way she's a jerk. There's a whole flock of reasons why you are. You speak dismissively about the committed man who's stuck by her side through teenage pregnancy, another baby, and has asked her to marry him. You speak as if she's less than because of a mistake she made in high school. You say you're under the impression she would return later, but she didn't know about the education fund. So do you think maybe her lack of funding would have influenced her decision to not go back when she had a baby at home? You are also under an assumption that all your remaining kids will decide on further education. That's a pretty silly assumption. It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. But as a grandmother, you think you'd be happy that your daughter wants to give her kids a home and 2 married parents. Edit. To everyone coming at me, check out a few more of OP's comments. It's not about money or education. It's about control. Not the jerk. It's not her money. It never was. And it was never a trust fund. It was money set aside to fund an education for her. And you've made it clear that it is very generously available to her to do exactly that. Frankly, as a 22-year-old high school dropout with 2 kids and a third on the way, at this point, she should be realizing more than ever, if she's matured at all, and based on her and her husband's struggles of the last few years, that going back to school and getting an education or vocational training of some sort is the best possible thing that she could do for her future and her family's financial stability. The fact that she doesn't see this, that she thinks you owe her something, and perhaps most importantly, that she thinks that money given to her should be spent on a wedding and perhaps a house, which later she likely couldn't afford the taxes and upkeep on, tells me that she's still making bad choices, only now she's making them as an adult with dependents. You are absolutely not the jerk, and I think it's actually important you stick to your guns here, for her sake. Tell her that the money will continue to be available to her to use for an education, which would help her in the long run far more than a wedding or a house down payment, but it isn't a trust fund, and it never was. You're the jerk. While you may have the legal right to withhold the money, this is not a thread about what you can do, but what you should do. Your daughter made some bad choices, but she can't unring the bell, and the entire purpose of a college fund is to help your kids to get a head start in life without the burden of crushing debt. Let your daughter use the money to buy a house. Let her use it to start a business. Let her use it to do something so she can get her life back on track. If you're dead set on it being used for college and nothing else, at least put it in a trust where she can use it later in life or her kids can use it later in their life. Consider also that what you're doing is making a large transfer of wealth to her siblings and not to her. This is one of the ways that estrangements occur. Be prepared for lots of fighting between you and your daughter, between your husband and your daughter, and between your daughter and siblings. All because you were insistent that the money go to college and not a house or a business. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know.
The money was saved for your college and to give you a good future. Not for you to have an extravagant wedding, which is a total waste of money, or for you to make a down payment on a house that you would end up losing because you can't afford it.
My wife demands I sacrifice my hobbies just so I can babysit. My wife, Jane, who's 34, and I, male 38, have been together for 5 years now. She also brought my stepdaughter, Emily, who's 9, into our marriage. We have her 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, while she stays at her dad for the other days. From the beginning, Jane told me Emily doesn't need a second father figure as she already has her dad to fill that role. I was only supposed to be a trusted authority figure in case she ever needed anything else. I didn't mind, and I try my best to respect that boundary. She's a sweet kid anyway and doesn't cause trouble, so it's not like I have to discipline her. Her father is also a good guy. Emily's dad recently got married, and his wife has 2 kids of her own who are at their place Wednesday to Saturday and at their dad's Sunday to Tuesday. Emily and her new step-siblings don't get along very well at all. They're always fighting and it's pretty toxic. Emily's dad asked Jane if they can change their custody schedule to match his stepkids to keep the kids apart. It's not a big deal in and of itself because we don't live far from each other, so picking and dropping off is no issue, as she can easily be dropped off at school no matter where she stays. The issue is my wife agreed to it without consulting me. Jane is currently doing a certification course for the next 12 months, and they have classes on Saturday from 9 to 5 p.m. She asked me if I can babysit Emily on Saturdays, but I can't because I play golf with my brother and sister on Saturday mornings from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. This has been our tradition from before Jane and Emily came into my life, and I had always told Jane how important this was to me and my siblings. She asked if I can move to another day, but that's not possible either because my siblings also have jobs and families of their own, so Saturday was the best day for us. I told her she can hire a babysitter, but she doesn't want to spend money when I can do it for free. I told her that wouldn't work for me. She then got mad and said golf is stupid and I should put my stepdaughter above my siblings. That really upset me, so I told her I'm not going to sacrifice my hobbies just so that she can have a free babysitter. For the record, I don't have anything against Emily. I've babysat for her before and she's a good kid. If there was a family emergency or if it was an occasional thing, then yeah, I would cancel golf for that day to take care of her. But I can't give up something this important to me for 12 months continuous. She called me a selfish jerk and slept on the couch last night. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. It sounds like this is something that should have been worked out more carefully as a family before agreeing to it. Is it possible that the dad or stepmom changed their kid's schedule as well? That way they have her when Jane is busy with certification courses. Info. Is there a kids class or something like that where you go golfing? Could help integrate the two if a schedule change is not possible. OP. There isn't, and even if there were, it would likely still have to be paid for. My wife doesn't want money to be spent to take care of Emily. She just wants me to do it for free. Not the jerk. I was ready to read this and read you for filth, but this is truly a jerk move from your wife. I think it's totally fair that she asks you to help out, but agreeing to it without talking to you and assuming you'd consistently do it is wild. Why did she agree and then work to loop you in after? It's also interesting that now that your wife needs your help, Emily is your stepdaughter, where it seemed like there was a clear boundary that you aren't her father figure. If your wife wants to revisit what your role is to Emily, totally cool, but it shouldn't be because she needs a babysitter. Not the jerk. Your wife can't say her daughter doesn't need you as a stepfather, but then expect you to step up as a stepfather every single Saturday when she needs you. She can hire a babysitter. Dad and stepmom also need to step it up and work on the relationship between the new step-siblings and get that under control, because there are going to be times where they are all together in the same house. That's just life. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
The things some people put up with for love.
Am I the jerk for telling my parents that they were horrible and saying they shouldn't have any more kids? I, 16 male, was born when my parents were very young. Like my mom was 16 and my dad was 17. Both families decided it would be the best for me if effectively my maternal grandparents raised me and my biological parents got to live their lives. That is not to say I didn't know who my actual parents were. This is not one of those situations like in movies where the mother pretends the daughter's kid is actually her own. I and everyone knew who my actual parents were. My father moved away when he was 18, but my mother remained in my grandparents' house until she was 23 and I was around 7, but that doesn't mean that we were close. She always treated me more like an annoying little brother rather than a son. She didn't like spending time with me, never attended any of my school functions or showed interest in my academic work or took me to any fun activities. Whenever I was talking about my day, she would roll her eyes or change the topic to shut me up. When she moved out, I barely saw her. She just came to family gatherings and said an awkward hi and not even looked at me. It hurt, even if by that point I already considered my grandparents to be more of my parents than her. My father was still living away. They weren't together at this point, but would come once or twice a year to visit his own family around the holidays, and always made it a point to visit me and take me to do some sort of fun activities, like going to the movies or my favorite restaurant, things like that. But to me, he was more like a stranger than a dad, because when I compared him to my friends' fathers who picked them up from school every day and went to their games and played with them on the weekends, I didn't understand why this man who I saw maybe twice a year was supposed to be the same. Anyway, fast forward to a year ago. My father moved back to the same city where we live. He tried to hang out with me more often, but I wasn't really interested, although sometimes I complied. I don't hate him, I just don't know him. I even had a bedroom in his apartment, which is cool because he lives in the center of the city. Behind everyone's back, both my parents had started hanging out, and a couple of months later, they announced they were dating. It was a shock. They asked me to move in with them to my father's apartment, which I refused, but they argued that we could finally be a family. I was about to start an argument on them when my grandma just said that changing school districts would be very inconvenient and I could lose all my friends, and the situation de-escalated by itself, although my parents didn't let go of the idea. My parents asked for me to spend more time with them, and this was particularly frustrating because even though I never had any particular tension with my father, I most definitely do with my mother. I don't like being around her, and she's treated me poorly my whole life, and I feel like she's now only trying to save face because she knows my dad wants me there. Now on to the issue. Last week, they both came into my grandparents' house. They announced they were going to buy a house nearby in the neighborhood so that I can finally move in with them. I immediately said no, and when they said that changing schools would no longer be an issue, I found myself in a corner, and I said that was never the problem, and that I just simply don't see them as my parents and don't want to live with them. That's when they dropped the bomb on us. Not only did they want me to move in with them so we could finally be a family, but my mother was pregnant, so we were going to be a bigger family even. I was shocked, and I blew my lid on them. I told them they were the worst parents in the world, and that they left me for 16 years, and now they were going to bring another kid into the world and do the same to them? And they never apologized for treating me like garbage and like a mistake they made and making me feel like I wasn't supposed to exist and dumping me to be other people's responsibility, and only now that they feel like they care that they actually want to be a family. My mother screamed back at me, telling me I was a brat and that she wasn't going to make the same mistakes twice raising her second baby. And I told her she never raised me to begin with, and my father said they were young and trying to do the best they could. Well, I guess the best you could do was still pretty bad. I stormed out and went to my room sobbing. I've been very depressed for the last week. They both called and texted, but I ignored them. My grandparents agree with me that I shouldn't move and that my parents shouldn't expect me to be all loving and forgiving after how they've treated me. However, they believe they are starting a new chapter of their lives now that they're more mature and stable, which I guess leaves me behind. I've also had time to think that I'm the same age as my mother was when she had me, and what a huge responsibility that must have been. However, I still can't forgive them. Am I the jerk for the way I reacted to the news? I've come to the conclusion that I have a lot of resentment and unanswered questions as well as misgivings about the future that I need to set straight with primarily my father. He needs to know how I grew up, and I need to know why he left me. I also feel like I need to warn him about my mother because I'm worried about my sibling being left and treated like I was. So I'm preparing a list of points and questions that I want to bring up to him, and we'll meet tomorrow or the day after, and I'll confront him with all of these to hopefully get some sort of closure or resolution. Update. First of all, I shared my post with my grandparents, and they were so surprised by it. They were all very happy to see how many people commented about how amazing they are. Also, they took the opportunity to tell me how much they loved me, and I told them the same thing. They are my real parents, and nothing is ever going to change that. There were some tears, and they told me they loved me and how proud of me they were. They never thought of themselves of doing something special or worth so much appreciation. They were just taking care of me the best they could. After that, I started trying to collect my thoughts and arranging a meeting with my father to discuss the things that were bothering me. Why did he leave me? Why did he think he could just reappear into my life like that? That I wasn't going to move in with them, and I didn't consider them my parents because they never acted as such, etc. We met at the park, and he went to hug me, but I stepped away, and he looked hurt, and he just apologized for what happened the other day, and went into this speech about how we could try to transition into living together part-time and respect my boundaries, and I went blank. I didn't expect for him to talk, so I pulled out my phone and just showed him the post I made the other day, and he started reading it in silence. After a while, he read it all and some of the responses, and he just asked me if this was true, and I said yes, and he told me if I had questions he would answer honestly. I asked what happened when I was born, and he told me that when my mother got pregnant, all options were laid on the table. Not having me, adoption, marriage, Gramps taking care of me, only one of my parents taking me in. My mother was deadly scared of adoption, so he proposed taking me in as sole caretaker and leaving his college plans to stay in our city, but his parents weren't thrilled with that plan and pushed him to go to college so that he could provide economically for me. They offered themselves to take care of me, but they were significantly older than my maternal grandparents. She was an only child. At the time, they were just 40, whereas my father has 5 older siblings and his parents were already in their 60s. And since taking care of me meant taking care of my mother for a while as well, my maternal grandparents decided it was the best decision for them to take me in. Also, intermediately after I was born, my mother had postnatal depression. One thing to note about my father that I didn't mention in my original post is that even when he was in college, he worked part-time to pay child support, and once he started working in a law firm, he started sending more money to my grandparents and set up a college fund for me, which was news for me. My grandparents don't know about this, but my mother does, so I don't know what to do with this information. My father thought of me all the time he spent away and believed he had left me with a happy family and that he was working to give me a better life, but I followed his life through social media. He went to parties, vacations, had girlfriends, and did lots of fun stuff and barely had any contact with me. I asked him why couldn't he have made more of an effort to be a part of my life. Like, I understand if he needed to study in another city and work there, but it's no effort to call or text. Coming once a year just doesn't cut it. He looked ashamed and apologized to me, and I took advice that I saw in a lot of comments here that I would forgive but not forget, and that maybe we can build a relationship going forward. But it will always be marked by his actions in the past. If he hasn't been my dad for 16 years, he can't start now. He seemed sad but accepted my conditions. I told him about my concerns about my mother, told him how she had treated me growing up, that I did not think she would be a good mother for my sibling, and that I wanted to go low or no contact with her. He said that after he left for college and they broke up, he would call her once in a while to check up on things, but that quickly ended, and when he came back, she explained to him that her and I had a great bond, and even though we didn't see each other daily, It was because I was in those teenage years and that she loved spending time with me and had been a very hands-on mom. I told him that everything she had said was a lie and that she never cared for me. He obviously read the stuff from my post, but I also told him other things, like when she would ask my grandparents for babysitting money, for taking care of me, or that she would call me annoying or disgusting. He was very serious and said he would talk to her, but that he really would not allow a kid to be treated like that, and said that he was sorry for letting that happen to me. Lastly, he told me he would have a bedroom in his house, but he understood perfectly that I would never live there. He was quite emotional at this point and got choked up at this point when he asked me if, even if I didn't consider him my father, I would consider his baby my sibling. I said of course, and that I planned to be a very active part of their life. He started crying and asked if he could hug me, and this time I agreed. I'm happy about the resolution of our conversation, and I really do believe he will be a good parent for my sibling. Update. So a lot of you warned me about crap hitting the fan when my biological mother talked with my dad, and today that's exactly what happened. My father sent me a text early in the morning warning me about the fact that he was going to confront my mom and that he didn't want anything to splash to me, and reassured me that he believed me completely, and I braced myself because I expected for her to call me going off on me or something. I truly don't care about what she thinks about me, but these past few days have been emotionally draining, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for another full-blown confrontation. After a few hours, my mother pulled into our house and let herself in, screaming at me, saying that I had ruined her relationship, and asking me why I had been blabbing about private matters that don't concern anybody. I said that my childhood matters to me and my father, who is also going to be the future father of her kid, and that her actions ruined the relationship. She called me a jerk and said that I was the biggest mistake she's ever made in her life. I didn't know she could still hurt me, but that was a low blow. And I said that I would do anything in my power to take her baby away from her because she was a monster of a mother. We were screaming at this point, and my grandparents, who were in the backyard, must have heard us and entered the room and separated us and heard part of the fight. I was fighting tears, and my grandma walked me upstairs to my room as my grandpa screamed at my mom, "How dare she speak to me that way?" My grandma soothed me a bit and then went to confront my mother with my grandpa. I heard from the door how they ripped her a new one. They confronted her for telling me the things that she did, for treating me like garbage all my life, and for lying to my father. They told her how disappointed they were in her for always treating me with disgust, and how many excuses they made for her, thinking she was a kid trying to raise a kid, but she was now an adult, and her behavior continued the same, and they said they were on the path of disinheriting her. My mother was screaming about how hard it had been for her, and how much she hurt, but my grandparents were having none of it. They raised me, and she was allowed to have the life she wanted and to take all the decisions she wanted without repercussions ever, and I even heard them say that if there was any custody battle ensued over the baby to come, they would take the father's side unless she drastically changed everything about her behavior. They went outside for a while, so I don't know what they said, but eventually they came into my room and my grandparents looked extremely serious, and my mother was red and crying and apologized to me through gritted teeth. I didn't respond, but my grandparents said on her behalf that she was going to start therapy immediately and she was no longer welcome in the house. I called my father after this and he was furious. He talked to my mother before going to a work meeting and confronted her about everything. Apparently it was nasty, but he was willing to work on the relationship for the good of the baby, on the condition that my mother would also be working on improving her relationship with me so that whenever I visited them, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable. After he left, he made her promise she wouldn't contact me until they talked again, but there's my mother for you folks. I asked him to think on what's better for himself and the baby and to not hold today against my mother if he doesn't want to. Also, a thing has come up a lot in the comments of my previous post is that my parents only want me as a babysitter and that I should steer away from them and the baby for my own sake, but I want to make a point about that. I can't say anything about their intentions. I know nothing about that, but I am really excited to have a sibling. Growing up, I had a very small family. It was just my grandparents and me. On my paternal side, I had a huge family with aunts, uncles, and cousins, but whenever I went there, I always felt like the odd one out. They tried to include me and invited me for Easter, Christmas, barbecues, and stuff like that. But I really didn't know them, and although they were nice to me, I always felt like I had a big sign on my head that said, "That kid John had in high school." I can't wait to have a sibling and love them and always be there for them and show them what a family is. I want to be the person that they can always rely on, and I want to feel that bond with someone. So even if I have my misgivings about my parents, and I do, a lot, I do not about being a big brother. Am I wrong for not agreeing to be a stay-at-home wife when I retire? I'm retiring in about 3.5 months, and my husband and I disagree on how the division of labor should be once that happens. Since meeting my now husband, I've been very vocal about my plans to retire when I turn 40. I've planned my life around this goal, lived below my means ever since college, and gave up things to meet this goal. We got married in our early 30s, so it's only been 7 years since then. He also saves for retirement. I finally got him to up his amount to 20%, but he won't be able to retire until at least 62. He's instead chosen to spend his money on things that make him happy, and I fully support and encourage him in that. Everyone has different goals in life. We're both child-free by choice, so that isn't a factor here. I've said in the past that I'm not going to be doing all of the cooking, cleaning, and finances once I retire because I don't want to replace one job with another. I currently do all of the cooking, most of the finances, and probably 25% of the cleaning. I think that it's fair, as my husband usually works more hours than I do, and I'm a picky eater, so it just works out the best. He recently made a casual comment about how he's going to start working more overtime once I retire because he'll have less household stuff to do. So I asked him what he meant by that, since my retirement doesn't really change anything for him, and that I preferred he didn't work more overtime so we could spend time together still. He said that most husbands with stay-at-home wives don't clean the house. I didn't know what to say because I thought we had already discussed this, so I tried my best to change the subject. But we had an argument about it yesterday at dinner, and he's now giving me the silent treatment. I slept in the guest room last night as he locked our bedroom door and wouldn't let me in. I just don't know how to get through to him. Even though I'll no longer be working, I won't be a stay-at-home wife by my own definition. To me, a stay-at-home partner is the manager of the home and doesn't bring in much, if any, income. Their job is to take care of the house. I'm not trading one job for another. I'm retiring. I'm still bringing in income. I've just planned my life so I no longer have to work 9 to 5 to do so. I have multiple hobbies that I have been super excited about devoting more time to. I love rock hounding, crocheting, and hiking. I'm an unpublished writer and have always dreamed of becoming published. I have a lifestyle blog and a pretty active Pinterest following. I'm not super consistent, and they're not big enough to monetize, so I count them as hobbies, not side jobs. I also have a very long travel bucket list. I've already started looking into nonprofits in my area I could volunteer for. I know I still have limited hours in a day, but even if I only volunteer 1 day a week, I still feel like I could be helping our local community. I know we've had conversations about this, and he's always been supportive, even of me leaving for a few weeks every so often to solo travel. He's always been excited for me. I'm totally confused about this change, and I'm freaking out. I thought I communicated my expectations, but he's saying that he doesn't even remember talking about it, and that he's not okay with me retiring if I'm just going to be lazy. I don't see it that way. Am I wrong? How are you currently splitting expenses? We split expenses proportionally based on income. I pay 70% of expenses, and that will continue once I retire. More about husband. To be fair to my husband, this post is all about an argument we're having. I didn't put in my post all the great things about him and all the other things that we agree on. I struggle with depression and anxiety, and he's the only partner I've had that has helped my mental health rather than hurt it. He's usually very understanding, kind, and reassuring. The things that make me good at money management make me bad at enjoying life. I'm very serious and I can be a realist, but he's an outgoing, fun guy who has taught me to live in the moment and relax. The reason I thought to post here is because this argument is not normal for us, and his attitude and behavior caught me off guard. He does pull his weight. All the jobs he does are the ones I'm literally physically unable to do, or ones that I hate and he doesn't mind. So I very much enjoy our arrangement. Locking you out was not okay. I'll definitely address what happened last night. Locking me out is one of the main things about what happened that concerned me enough to ask for outside opinions. But from reading the comments, I think I may have been too quick to shut him down instead of coming up with a compromise or figuring out why he was changing his mind on the topic. When was the last time you discussed your early retirement with him? I went on a weekend backpacking trip about 5 months ago, and when I got back, I made a comment about how I can't wait to be able to hike more often. We ended talking about my travel plans for the next few years. Because I do all of the cooking, that was brought up as well. He wanted me to make all of his meals ahead of time before I leave, but we ended up agreeing that I would stock the fridge and he would either cook for himself or get takeout. If he retired, he wouldn't do more work either. I know this because it was hard enough getting him to agree to do the chores he does now. Because I do the cooking, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, most of the finances, grocery shopping, kitchen cleanups, cleaning, all kinds of stuff. I also manage the repairs. We live in my dream house, but because it's old, it needs a lot of care. My husband wanted a newer home, so I agreed to take on all of that. I also manage the carriage house that we rent out. If I did any more of the chores, I wouldn't have time for anything else. He does landscaping, cleans bathrooms, takes care of his turtles, cleans windows and blinds, and takes care of his laundry and other communal laundry, towels, sheets, etc. I think it's fair as we both do most of the chores over the weekend, obviously except daily chores, and we both have free time. Update. So he came home very late that night after ignoring his phone. We didn't end up talking about it, and I slept in the guest room again. He works from home Tuesday and Thursday, so the next day he was home when I got off of work. I spent the day gathering my thoughts and preparing to have a calm discussion. I tried to remain calm, but he was so defensive and accusatory that I was getting very frustrated. We weren't very productive, and we ended our talk with him denying that I pay 70% of the expenses even though we planned this out and budget together based on it. I told him I'd go through our expenses to prove it, and being the person that I am, I did so the next day. This is where the problem starts. When I was going through our expenses, I found a charge on my husband's credit card from 2 weeks ago that I didn't recognize. It was not a significant amount, so I originally looked into it just to see if it was a household or personal expense to use in my calculations. It turned out to be a bill paid to a law office. For very obvious reasons, I wanted to know more information on why he was being billed by a law office. I looked up the office, and it was a divorce attorney specializing in property division. I logged into his email. I have proof he has given me permission to access his email at any time to go over expenses, and I found his conversations with said lawyer. He was trying to find a way to overturn our prenup so he gets half instead of what's agreed upon in our prenup, and wanted to try and get alimony as well. I had no idea he wasn't happy until we started arguing on Saturday. That morning, he woke me up with breakfast in bed, a total surprise since it wasn't a special day and he almost never cooks. 2 weeks ago, we had a Star Wars movie marathon and ran around the house in a lightsaber battle. Last month, he communicated that he felt like we weren't spending as much time together as we normally do, so I planned more date nights. He's gotten me flowers at least once a week for months now. I just didn't understand why he wanted to divorce, without even trying to express what he was feeling to me. When I went all the way back to the very first emails, late July, a woman we'll call Ashley was brought up. I tried to think of a way to confirm my suspicions without him suspecting that I knew what he's been up to. On Saturdays, we sometimes get takeout, so I purposely left my phone upstairs and asked him if I could use his to order the food, and I was taking too long to figure out what I wanted, so he went downstairs to finish what he was doing, giving me more time. It was hard to wait that long without letting on what I knew, but from Thursday to Saturday, I began to get a plan in place. I spoke with a divorce attorney and scheduled my consultation and made sure I had any legal and financial documents I need. On Saturday, when I went through his phone, I found Instagram messages between him and Ashley. By going through the messages and looking at her account, I figured out a lot about her. She seems to be a nice girl he met on Tinder back in May. She's 27 and married to her high school sweetheart who can't bring in enough income for her to be a stay-at-home wife. Considering my husband works in tech, and by looking at his messages, lied about how much he makes, he's obviously the better option. He's lied to her about wanting to have kids and has told her that it's the reason he's unhappy in our marriage. I don't know what he's thinking she's going to do when she finds out that he had a vasectomy. Ashley is apparently willing to do all of the duties that I'm not. From cross-checking dates, when he's supposed to be hanging out with his friends or at a work thing, he's actually with her. He has a weird work schedule, so she sometimes comes over to our house on the days that he works from home and I'm in the office. She's convinced that after they both go through their respective divorces, that they'll live in the house together, get married, and have kids. He's just gone along with everything she says. He's told her that I'm lazy and hardly make any money, and that I wanted to quit my job and not do any work, which is why he's finally gotten the courage to leave me. He said that he's taking extra care in the divorce because he doesn't want to leave me with nothing. He's also told her I changed my mind about having kids and that I'm denying him his desire to continue his lineage. Now you may be thinking, are you stupid? How did you not know? The answer is, I had no idea, and I must be dumb as he played me for a fool. I'm trying to put some humor in this for my own sake, but I'm sobbing as I write this. I just got back from my new attorney's office with a lot of forms to fill out, and I'm so overwhelmed and still feel confused for some reason. Like this must just be a really bad dream. I reached out to Ashley's husband, so they're probably heading towards divorce as well. He seems like a nice enough guy, also totally blindsided by the affair. I told my husband I was divorcing him last night and told him he could either sleep in one of the guest rooms or get a hotel room. He chose the latter. So that's my update. Our prenup has a 99% chance of holding up in court, but we also have an infidelity clause that I'm hoping to prove so I can keep 100% of the house. I was willing to put my dream house in the infidelity clause because I knew I would never cheat. He was fine with it at the time as well, but is now blowing up my phone about it. If I can't prove his affair, which is unlikely considering the evidence I have, I would have to pay him about 25% of our equity in the house, which is enough for a down payment on another house, so he wants me to not bring his affair into our divorce, which is weird to me since he had no qualms with bringing the affair into our marriage. Did he text you about not bringing up the affair in the divorce? Because that's evidence. Yeah, I never said he was the smartest. In the texts, he's saying to not bring up Ashley, doesn't mention an affair, and that she shouldn't be involved in our divorce, that we should keep things to ourselves, etc. But I sent myself screenshots of the messages from his phone that prove infidelity. About his lineage line, the funny thing is that he just made it up. He got a vasectomy before we even met and is even more staunchly child-free than I am. About Ashley, I'm pretty sure she'll find out the lies from her husband since I told him everything. I'm now hoping her husband will get a big promotion suddenly or something where he's finally making enough money for her, but now that they're divorced, she'll just be stuck with my husband or left finding someone else. I wonder how long he's been doing this. OP, I know they met on Tinder back in May, but I don't know if he's ever done anything else like this before. Since it's very likely I'll be able to prove infidelity in court, I don't necessarily need to know if he's had other affairs, but I hope he'll tell me the truth if I ask. Maybe he will if I ask him after the divorce is settled, so it wouldn't hurt him at all. It turns out Ashley is staying at the same hotel as my husband. Go figure. Make my life difficult for nearly a decade? I'll make you look like an idiot. When I first left home to go to university, my parents co-signed a mortgage for me on an apartment-style condominium in a small Canadian city. This was 20 years ago, so it came in at a whopping $52,000. They thought that this was a much better and economical choice than trying to find an apartment and deal with landlords. I loved the idea and moved into my new home. The building was almost entirely populated by the 65-plus crowd. It was small and only had 24 units split into two halves. I had a basement condo. It was a nice place, nothing fancy, but amazing for a student. I was young, 19, but I was quiet, kept to myself, and didn't do the whole party thing. I got along with most of my neighbors. I'd help them out moving heavy things or carrying groceries upstairs. I was acutely aware of the age gap and the general image of a university student, so I made sure to be just an all-around great guy to avoid conflict. The one person I could never see eye to eye with was my upstairs neighbor. For a 70-year-old woman, she couldn't have weighed more than 100 pounds, but she walked like an elephant. She'd have gospel music on her TV at max volume at 5 a.m. on Sundays. She'd make remarks about, "that darn kid," whenever something was left out of place. She even went so far as to accusing me of breaking into her car and making a police statement saying she saw me do it. Unfortunately for her, I was out of the country on an internship at the time, but still, she persisted being a pain in my side. I tried to approach her about the TV issue, and her response was to make sure that it was no longer just Sunday. After a couple of years of attempted diplomacy, it was clear that nothing I did would make things better. Others in the building probably knew she had it out for me, but why would this adorable little old lady try to lie and get me thrown out of the building by the condo board? She tried at least 11 times while I lived there. 7 years into my time living there, I was at my job with an ambulance service just north of the city. I got called to a shooting. It happened over a neighbor's land dispute. The neighbor survived, but there was of course going to be a police investigation. The investigating officers called me to get a statement and offered to just come over to do it, rather than have me travel. One of them was a constable I'd worked with quite a bit, so I said sure. We set a time for about an hour after I'd get home from work. I was just getting out of the shower when they buzzed to get in the building. I said, "Come in, I'll be out in a second." I hit the door buzzer and quickly grabbed some pants and a shirt. I heard them come in and then walk upstairs. As I'm trying to throw on some clothes, I hear them knock on my upstairs neighbor's door. They introduced themselves as being from the RCMP Major Crimes Division and that they were looking for me. She says,
"Oh, he lives downstairs. What do you want with him?"
They thanked her and informed her that they couldn't say as it was an active investigation. My heart sank, but then I had an idea. It only took about 15 minutes to do my statement and they went on their way. and then the fun began. I knew the rumor mill would be starting. She would tell everyone that would listen that Major Crimes was looking for me and that I must be some sort of criminal. I decided to see where this went. Pretty soon, I'm getting side-eyed in the hallway. Neighbors are steering clear of me, so I know she's been talking. Turns out, I've been arrested for all kinds of crimes and I must be out on bail according to her. I found this out when one of my neighbors, who was on the condo board, showed up with a letter demanding an explanation and threats to have me kicked out. I asked him what this was all about, and he said, "Well, Linda sent us a letter about what happened, and we had to have an emergency board meeting because people don't feel safe with you here." I said that per the bylaws of the condo board, before any action could be taken, I could request a meeting to review and provide a defense. Linda was on the board, so I knew that she'd be there. They set a date for a week from then, but I was given a caution that it didn't look good for me and that I would have to do a lot of explaining. The meeting day comes. Linda is sitting smugly looking at me. The other board members are giving me dirty looks. The board president asks what I have to say in my defense. I stand and quietly distribute a letter on RCMP letterhead signed by the regional superintendent that says, "Mr. Zenmedic is not under suspicion of any crimes, past or current, and has not been arrested, detained, or questioned as a suspect in any criminal matter. His duties as a paramedic will often require him to make statements in regards to ongoing investigations, and in this instance, on this date, investigators had gone to obtain a statement about an ongoing investigation for which he was professionally involved. At no time did the members discuss, disclose, or in any way indicate that they had any involvement in any wrongdoings. I am deeply saddened by the necessity of this letter, and we will be reopening an investigation into a previous incident regarding false statements made against him." You could tell when people read and understood it. The dirty look shifted from me to Linda. She exclaimed that it must be forgery. She witnessed me being led off in handcuffs. She pleaded that they should believe her. It didn't help. I stood and addressed the board and outlined the years of mistreatment from her, including the false accusations of breaking and entering her vehicle. I informed the board that on advice of my lawyer that I do not discuss the matter further with any member of the board, as Linda, being part of it and using her position for the purpose of harassment, opened the board as a whole to litigation, and I was still weighing my options. The next day I had a knock on my door. The board president had informed me that Linda was removed from the board and that she was given a warning about her conduct, and that any further harassment would result in proceedings to have her removed from the building. She also had a visit from police with a summons for providing a false statement and obstructing a peace officer. She had to attend court. She pled guilty to both and was given a suspended sentence and 1-year condition not to harass, threaten, or intentionally inconvenience me in any way. If she abided her conditions, she would receive an absolute discharge, meaning it would be removed from her record, like it never happened. I moved to another province before her year was up, but for a brief period of time, I actually got to sleep in on Sunday mornings. I suggested to my friend that she should shave. Now she won't talk to me. I'm 29, female. My friend, let's call her Emily, she's 32, is an amazing person. She's fun, adventurous, intelligent, super active, a great cook, outgoing, and just a great girl to be around. A few years ago, she decided not to shave anymore. Legs, armpits, other areas, out of protest to the system, resulting in her having very long dark hair everywhere. A few days ago, we were having a beer, and she told me how sad her dating life was, that she kept meeting guys and having very fun dates, but never got a call back, or when she tried asking for a second or third date, got rejected in a very generic manner. Now, after telling her, "You're so gorgeous and wonderful, the right man will come along, don't worry," multiple times, I decided to go out on a limb and said something along the lines of, "I know this is a very superficial thing to say, but do you think it might help a little if you would shave?" She was taken aback and told me she was disappointed I would suggest she change her appearance for them, and that I was only adding to her suppression. I immediately apologized, but the evening was pretty much ruined. I texted her the next day, apologizing again for hurting her feelings, but she hasn't replied. I really did not want to hurt her feelings, but I also don't quite see how my comment was that bad, so I'm not sure how to phrase my apology. So I decided to take it here and ask people how big of a jerk I am. She has the right to not shave, and the guys she dates have the right to not like it. People are attracted to what they're attracted to. That's just reality. If she wants a man who doesn't mind this, that will be a much smaller percentage of the male dating pool, and it will be more difficult for her to find a partner. If she was asking for your advice and you were trying to help her, then not the jerk. Especially because you're likely right, and the hair is the reason that the men are not staying. I think it's silly that she's mad at you just for stating the obvious truth. Edit. After thinking about this more, I'm thinking that yes, the hair is probably the main issue, but the fact that she has it probably really is a symptom of her personality and outlook on life and general opinions, and those things are probably the even bigger reasons the guys aren't sticking around. You're the jerk. Not shaving is a value statement. She's looking for a partner in life that has the same values. By telling her to shave, you are telling her to change her values just to get a man. Instead of saying, "Don't worry, you'll find the right man," why not say, "It's better that these wrong men are screened out than to be with one of them that doesn't value the same things you do." Now that would be miserable compromising your values. Being single is not the end of the world. You're the jerk. I also refuse to shave and have dealt with so many jerks who are not okay with it. If he can have long hair under his arms, then why can't I? It's obviously just not fair, and people like your friend and I are brave enough to challenge the status quo. You're a total jerk for telling her to change who she is for them, and you are part of what's wrong with modern society. Not the jerk. Your friend is obviously one of those people who can't accept reality and gets mad when confronted with it. She sounds really toxic, bitter, and hostile. Life tip: don't keep people like this in your life. Their problems are never going to be solved, and they will always take it out on the people who are trying to help them. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for weaponizing my sister's poverty during a family dinner? Background: I've always been ambitious and started a bakery pretty young. I was able to do it through a family loan, which I'm grateful for, and a lot of grit and insane hours. The dedication led me to miss out on a lot of things, and while I'm incredibly proud to have built something that's turned into a super popular spot in my neighborhood, I've definitely missed out on a few things. One of which is that I'm 35 and single and childless. Although I have no regrets, I do want to find love. This is a topic of frequent discussion during family dinners with my parents and sister. It's not an unwelcome discussion, and my parents don't nag. They just ask normal things like, "How was that coffee date last week?" Or, "Did you like so-and-so?" And if things don't work out, they don't say anything much. Normally, it's not a sad discussion, but this week I was sharing a bigger than normal disappointment in a recent failed date. We had gone out a few times, and I thought it would turn into something, but our schedules were just incompatible. After hearing this, my sister piped up and said she wasn't surprised because I had a negative and unfeminine aura that turns away men. My parents tried to shut her up, but she kept going on and on about how men would find my energy aggressive because I set too many boundaries. She ended with saying that I should try manifesting a positive love story, and that by going into relationships with negativity, I was manifesting failure. I was honestly so mad at this point that I just blurted out, "Well, maybe if you manifested a job, you wouldn't be fighting with Tom," her kid's father, over child support payments. She has 2 kids with Tom, split 50-50 custody, and she tries to live off her child support payments by staying with my parents. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with that, except she always complains about not having nice things, like she wants a Chanel bag and was jealous her friend got one for her anniversary. And she refuses to work. My dad offered her an admin job at his company, but she hated sitting for so long. She immediately started crying at the table, causing us to cut dinner short. My parents are trying to not take sides, but have recently asked me to apologize because my sister has been making social media posts about me weaponizing her poverty and being a bully. By the way, to call herself poor is honestly a slap in the face to people who are actually poor. She lives in a gated community in my parents' home. She refuses to come to my mom's birthday party next week if I don't say sorry. I personally feel like she deserved it, but I can tell my mom's upset. By the way, the boundaries my sister says that result in me manifesting negativity are things like me turning down a date 4th of July weekend because I own a bakery and it's a huge weekend for my business, requiring me to be all hands on deck pumping out pies and pastries. Not the jerk. Your sister seems jealous. I'd speculate because you exerted yourself to make your business successful and consequently are able to be financially independent, whereas she is wholly financially reliant on your parents and her ex. You didn't weaponize her poverty, you observed it. Are there gentler ways to point out that she isn't qualified to be giving you life advice? Yes, but given that her criticism of you was neither requested nor constructive, she has no right to expect you to be protective of her feelings in that moment. I don't think you owe her an apology. If someone uses the word manifest, I automatically think they're the jerk. Not the jerk. I would like to suggest you think about one thing though. You write that she has 2 kids with Tom, split 50-50 custody, and tries to live off her child support payments by staying with your parents. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Respectfully, yes, there is something wrong with that. Child support is meant to support the kids, not the ex. Your sister is being unfair to the kids if she's using their money to support her own needs. She needs to get a job, as grown-ups do. I'm a full-time government worker and so is my spouse. We go to the food bank and we can absolutely not afford to have any kids. We share a tiny, overpriced studio apartment to be in the area where we can get job experience for our resumes. Forget a Chanel bag. I stress about car insurance. Yes, you're right. Your sister calling herself poor is a total slap in the face to people like myself. Not the jerk. You need to get on her social media and reply that since she refuses to work at all because she hates sitting for so long, and that she can go forget herself. Your parents are awful for even asking you to apologize. They're enabling her, and they aren't doing her any favors in the long run. What happens when they pass on and can't support her? Your parents need to be okay with her not coming to stuff and to appear unbothered, or this emotional blackmail will continue. Do not apologize to her. Am I overreacting breaking up with my boyfriend because of his mom? My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years long distance. We met while we were both on vacation. In that time, I've met his family, but only through Zoom. We couldn't meet in person due to the intensive degree program I was doing. So in the last 2 years, my boyfriend has been traveling to see me every 2 months. Now that I'm done with my program, I can pretty much work anywhere, and since I work from home, I thought I would move into my own place in the city my boyfriend lives in and continue to explore our relationship. I went to look at apartments and then went to meet his family in person for the first time and have dinner. Everything was going well. I met his parents, his brothers, and their spouses. His mom was very pleasant until dinner started. His oldest brother's wife had made an appetizer and served it. It was really good, but their mom put the appetizer in her mouth, made a noise, and then made it seem like she had to force herself to eat it. She said something like, "That's a different taste," and made a disgusted face. There was nothing wrong with the appetizer. She then went to the kitchen and came out with the same appetizer and said, "It's good I made the same one just in case." I expected the daughter-in-law to say something, but she just kept quiet. No one said a word, and the conversations continued like it was normal. The mom, with the daughter-in-law and the other spouses, then helped take away our plates that still had the first appetizer on them, served hers on new plates, and told us all to eat. It was the same appetizer. There was no difference. In fact, I preferred the daughter-in-law's because hers had more vanilla. I was astounded that she did this. Dinner continued, and it was all made by the mom. She kept asking how the food was and made passive-aggressive comments about certain dishes that were made before by the other daughter-in-laws. I didn't say anything because I was shocked, but after we left dinner, I asked my boyfriend what happened. He said his mom is really passionate about her cooking and doesn't like anyone to outdo her. I said, "So this happens at every family dinner?" And he said yes. If someone had made a dish before or they make one at dinner, his mom tries to outdo them. He said his brother's wives don't take it personally because they know how she is and that it's really coming from a place of love. I'm sorry, but what I saw is not from a place of love, and the daughter-in-law seemed like she was going to cry. My boyfriend finally said she's just territorial about her cooking, and other than that, she's very normal. I finally asked him, when did this behavior start? And he said when his eldest brother first brought a serious girlfriend home. His eldest brother is 8 years older than him, so I asked from the time they were dating up to now, did all your brother's partners go through this? And he said yes. I said, do you think your mom's behavior is bad? And he got a little offended and said, no, I just think she's passionate about making good food. I've been thinking on it, replaying the dinner and comments over and over in my head, and there's no way I can sign myself up for this kind of life. My boyfriend and I are starting to talk about marriage and the future and kids, and I'm very nervous now. His brother's wives have endured this mistreatment over their cooking since the start of their relationships with their spouse's mother, and no one says a thing. Not them, not their husbands, not his dad, and not my boyfriend. How is this okay? How can I sign up for this level of insult every time there's a family dinner? If my boyfriend and I reach that stage, can I never cook anything? Will she always try to upstage me? Will she make comments about my cooking? I don't know if I can set myself up to walk into a toxic family situation like this. I'd rather leave. I honestly am really considering breaking up with him because of this. Edit. I made this post to vent. I didn't want to tell my sisters or my BFF about this because this could be an issue I get over with my boyfriend, but family doesn't forget. Finding just no mother-in-law doesn't help. Anyway, I asked my boyfriend if he could reach out to his brother's wives and ask if I could contact them for lunch. I didn't want to overstep. If they agree to this lunch, I'm writing down a few questions I'm going to ask. After lunch, I plan to have a talk with my boyfriend, and then I'll go from there. For the people asking why I'm willing to throw away a relationship where my boyfriend clearly has put in a lot of effort to see and be with me, the answer is that I'm thinking about the rest of my life here. I'm in my early 20s, and if we get married and have kids, if his mom is actually going to be like this, or worse, that's decades of drama and passive aggressiveness I would rather not deal with or have instilled in my future kids. I'm not doing that. If it's a choice between being with him and dealing with what I saw at dinner on a regular basis or being alone, I choose being alone. I'm going to communicate. That's one thing I should have done immediately. I'm going to openly express how I feel at every step and tell him why I'm doing it. I'll go from there based on what I can see to make a decision. Your biggest problem is that your boyfriend doesn't see anything wrong with her behavior. You're getting a taste of how she'll treat you, and rest assured he won't do anything about it. They've all enabled her rude behavior. She's a bully. Don't sign up for this. You'll be fighting a losing battle, trying to get him to stand up for you. And if you stand up for yourself, he'll blame you for causing problems in the family. You'll be the villain. End it now. She can't make comments about anyone's cooking if they refuse to cook. I don't understand why any of them are still trying to cook anything. That's just nuts. It's like the saying goes, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I would simply not do it. If it's a family get-together, I'd just let mother-in-law cook everything and I'd sit on my butt and have a nice glass of wine while she's working in the kitchen. I would not put myself in any kind of situation where I'd be expected to cook. No hosting dinners at my own house if mother-in-law is going to be there. If I wanted to host the in-laws, I'd take them to a restaurant. I would simply not ever cook if she was going to be eating the food. But to answer your question, I would not be anxious to sign myself up for a toxic bunch of in-laws either. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. And the fact that your boyfriend defends his mother's behavior, red flag. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for breaking up with her boyfriend over this or not? Please let us know.
If you love and respect your partner, you cannot allow your family members to treat them like this. If only more people could understand that and grow a spine.
Am I the jerk for refusing to dine out with my husband's best friend? My husband has a best friend named John that he's known since college. I really like John, but it's worth mentioning that John grew up very differently from both me and my husband, and that he comes from a wealthy family who supported him financially until he graduated from college and got his first job working for a major bank. He doesn't know what it's like to be poor or work a lower-paying service job and have to make ends meet because he never had to. I don't think it makes him a bad person, just out of touch with reality. This leads me to this. One thing about John is that I absolutely hate going out to eat with him. He's so rude to servers and will often find reasons to not tip them. He has a habit of trying to order off menu or adding so many modifications to a dish that it's no longer recognizable and will get angry if it's even a little bit wrong. He doesn't have any allergies or intolerances. Dining with him can be embarrassing and mentally exhausting. Last night was the last straw for me. The three of us and another couple decided to try a newer restaurant in our city. After being seated, John seemed to be on his best behavior. No complicated drinks or food orders. In fact, he got a glass of wine and only made 2 modifications to his entree. The only negative was that our server seemed to be in the weeds because of how busy the restaurant was. But she was pleasant, and you could tell she was trying her best to keep us happy, which is all that should matter. John got upset because she wasn't refilling his water as soon as he finished it. His second glass of wine took a while, and our entrees took about half an hour to get out. All the while, he's talking about how this was going to be reflected on his tip. I was annoyed. And then when our entrees did come out, one of his mods didn't come out right, and he went ballistic on the server, started calling her names, etc. I've never seen him get that angry with the server before. Usually he's just passive-aggressive. In response, I lost it on him and told him that he was overreacting to such a small slight and that it probably wasn't even her fault. If he had such an issue, then he needed to speak to a manager and not yell at her about it. His meal was fixed soon after, and the rest of the night went on smoothly. Of course, John left no tip, so I doubled mine to make up for it. In the parking lot, I told him that I would never go out to eat with him again if he was going to continue to act so entitled to restaurant workers. I added that he needed to humble himself and not act like he's above anyone who doesn't work a white-collar job, because not all of us were born into money and left without saying goodbye. On the car ride home, my husband told me my comments to John were inappropriate and that I was a jerk to him because he had every right to be mad. I replied that I had the right to not want to eat with people who behave like he does because it's exhausting. Good for you. You stood up for her when she likely would have lost her job if she had stood up for herself. As for your husband, he thinks John had the right to treat the server like dirt and go ballistic on her? He's wrong. And please don't blame John's privilege for his terrible behavior. Blame John, pure and simple. The issue is John's character, not his wealth. There are plenty of people from all walks of life who treat people in service jobs respectfully, and unfortunately a few who don't. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Forget your husband. When someone like that is part of your dinner party and it impacts your experience, they brought you into their tantrum. You can tell the character of a person by how they treat servers and how they hold money over someone's head. Maybe your husband felt too seen since he seems to be fine with the belittling going on. Not the jerk, but you gotta wonder about your husband who thinks John's behavior is okay. If you do go out to eat again, let your husband know that for every time John is rude to the waitstaff, you expect hubby to pony up an additional percentage to the tip and keep a tally. Maybe then he'll take notice. Am I the jerk for telling my friend her baby is the reason no one wants her around? I'm female, 24. My friend Anna, who's also 24, had a baby around 6 months ago. Our friend group is otherwise childless. All of us used to hang out a lot before the baby was born. Baby changed dynamics because Anna wanted to bring the baby everywhere with her as it's a baby. We tried to plan things around baby to include Anna, but it always ended up badly. We shouldn't drink because Anna can't drink. We shouldn't be loud because baby needs to sleep. Icing on the cake is her baby is extremely fussy and cries all the time. It was just a downer for the rest of us, so we started hanging out without Anna and her baby. Last weekend, all of us went on a staycation. We had a great time and posted photos and videos on Instagram. Anna saw these and called me to ask why I didn't invite her. I tried telling her it was a last-minute plan and we could only find a child-free resort so as to not hurt her feelings. She called my bluff, sending me pics some random family had posted with their kids at the resort. She kept forcing me, and I told her we did not want to hang out with her baby. She asked, how can I say that about her baby? I asked her to leave it at that, but she wouldn't. I finally told her it's a baby, and we are all young. We don't want to live our life around a baby she chose to have, that we get to do adult stuff and party all we want to. Her baby is the only reason she wasn't invited. If she left baby at home, she can come too. She got upset and called me a jerk. She also sent a text in the group chat saying she's disappointed in all of us for excluding her because she's a mom. Half our friend group thinks I should not have told her the real reason and they're mad at me. The other half thinks she's unreasonable. Am I the jerk for telling her the truth? She refuses to leave the baby with her boyfriend or babysitter. Even when we say an event is for adults, like a dinner we had a few weeks ago, she still brought her baby. Baby cried throughout the night, earning us glares, and we had to leave early. Not the jerk. You tried to let her down easy, and she kept on asking. Her life is different, and she probably just needs to find a different group of friends, one that more closely aligns with her interests. Not the jerk. You're not excluding her because she's a mom. You're excluding her because she makes being a mom everyone else's problem. She won't leave the baby home. Does it have a father present, grandparents, anyone who can watch it for a few hours? She expects you to cater to her needs. You shouldn't have to not drink just because she can't. It sounds like she doesn't remove the baby from the situation when it's fussy, so you all have to deal with it. You have every right to want to be young and act like it. She needs to accept that having a baby has changed things for her, but that doesn't mean everyone else has to change everything to accommodate that. My fiancé is reconsidering our marriage after visiting my home country. To start, I come from a small island in the Caribbean, part of the US. I moved to the US 5 years ago just after graduating university and landed a job here. Since day one, my fiancé has been romanticizing what it's like to live in a tropical paradise, my country. I love my country and I was raised there, but it's not even close to a paradise. Of course it has its charm, but not close to that level. Well, we were planning our honeymoon and she wants to stay there for 2 weeks and travel around the island. I'm not fond of that idea because I've seen it all and she wants to visit not safe areas around the island. Her main part of attraction is a place that's in a huge music video, but it's not a safe place for tourists. So I said, fine, let's just do a quick visit before our wedding so we can see what's going on. She immediately accepted, and 1 month later we traveled to my home country. She wasn't impressed, but I kept my mouth shut. We arrived at this place, and I already know today that it's a hot day to be there. I tried to convince her, but she insists on going in. The locals are eyeing us, and my mind is screaming we shouldn't be there. Not even 3 feet in, and 2 guys confronted us. She started talking, and her broken Spanish just made things even worse. I tried to calm down the situation, and we left soon after. I kept my mouth shut, even though I just wanted to tell her, I told you so, because this was stupid from the start. On our way back home, she didn't say a word even after I tried to start a conversation. Well, today, 1 week after we arrived, she left her ring at the nightstand with a note telling me she needs some time. I fear this might be the end of it all. She never does this sort of thing. Update: she called off the engagement. I don't know what to do now. Probably just drink while I play some Halo with the boys before crying myself to sleep. See ya. Let her go. It looks like she was in love with the romanticized idea of having the potential to live in a tropical island. Then her idea busted. If she was really loving you, this experience would not affect the personal relationship with you. I'm 32, male. My girlfriend, who's 31, doesn't want me as her wedding date. Backstory: my girlfriend and I went out for the first time about 10 months ago. I hadn't realized then, but she had just gotten out of a long and serious relationship basically without any warning. She was shocked, hurting, confused, and I think just looking for a fun casual time. I suppose we hit it off way better than expected and started seeing each other pretty consistently. She was clear she wasn't ready to jump into anything too quickly, but soon enough we were essentially boyfriend-girlfriend. Going out 1 to 2 times a week, texting every single day, and as far as I know, not seeing other people. Around the holidays, I met her family, and although we really hit it off, I think it freaked her out a bit. She continued to text daily, but barely. She didn't want to come over and made excuses to not go out. After a month, we saw each other finally, and things went back to the way they were. In May, a similar thing happened, and we actually stopped talking for a week. After that week, she reached out, we talked and went out. While out to dinner, she and I both acknowledged how hard it was to not talk to each other, how we felt, and she asked me for us to be official. I felt the same way and was elated to say yes. Since being official, she met my family. I've spent some more time with hers. We did 2 mini trips together, and I even joined her family vacation for a few days. The family loves me, and her little sister is getting married in about a month. It's my impression that the sister and her fiance, who also loves me, wanted me at the wedding, and basically said things to me assuming I was going. I know it can be a pain to invite guests later in the game, so it really means a lot. The issue is that my girlfriend hasn't invited me, and has basically told me she doesn't really know if she wants me there. My girlfriend is the maid of honor, and she and her sister are absolute best friends. I guess she feels like, with it not only being her sister, but also her best friend, there's a lot of pressure on her and us about having me there. She doesn't want the pictures and memories for the rest of her life to feature one guy she was dating at the time. By the time of the wedding, we'll have basically been seeing each other for a year, though maybe only made it official for 4 to 5 months. I don't feel like I'm just some guy and can't help but feel offended. I know this probably has to do with her last relationship ending abruptly and without warning. I think she's still learning how to trust again. But at the same time, it feels like she's telling me we aren't fully going to make it, and if she chooses to not have me there, it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've tried to ask a little about it a few times, but she honestly gets so worked up and stressed out when it comes to this wedding that I don't want to mention it to her anymore. At this point, I haven't been officially told anything either way, invited or not. At what point should a significant other be invited as a date? Update: the responses from everyone seem to be pretty split down the middle. Half of you saw this as a huge red flag and suggested I end everything, while the other half thought it was okay and the best thing I could do for my girlfriend was to just support her. Being that everything else in our relationship seemed to be going so well, I wasn't going to end things over this. My next decision was to also not approach the subject again. She had gotten so stressed out the last time that I didn't see how bringing it up again could help the situation. If she was still teetering on what to do, I wanted to let her make the decision on her own, not sway her based on what I wanted. People suggested I find a way to enjoy the weekend on my own or with friends. Well, what do you know? There's a big barbecue festival in the city my friend lives in. Everyone knows the best way to distract a man with swirling thoughts is through meat. Well, yesterday that all changed because she asked me to go as her date. She apologized for being so late about it, but she described going through what a lot of you had written. She's helping a lot with this wedding and is under an enormous amount of stress. She wasn't sure about bringing me out of fear that it would be another thing she would have on her mind. Where she wants all her focus on is her sister. She says the way I've been supporting her lately made her realize she won't need to worry about me. Yes, I probably won't even get to talk to her until dinner. No, I won't know too many people since all of her family I'm close with will be in the wedding parties. However, I'm important to her and she wants me there with her regardless. She apologized for the last conversation, making it sound like I was just some guy that she was worried about having in pictures. She argued jokingly that it wasn't exactly how she said it, but neither of us can remember the exact verbiage anyway. She was also really appreciative that I haven't been pressuring or nagging her about this and let her come to her own decision. The fact that I gave her space on the subject, yet continued to support her, was what made her realize how much she wanted me there. I miss my annoying wife. I've been married to my wife for over 4 years now. From the point we were dating until 3 months ago, she was very annoying. She would prank me by scaring me. She would put her cold hands and feet on my shirt while we were laying down. She would scream my name in a very panicked way just to follow with, "I love you." She would take the cap out of my tires just so I wouldn't have air in them and couldn't use the car, just on the weekends when I didn't need… Man, she was annoying, wasn't she? Dang. So it wouldn't be a problem, but it was annoying. She would make me a small cup of coffee with salt in it, and the list goes on and on. But I didn't mind because I loved her so much. 3 months ago, things took a turn. She lost her mom unexpectedly and is understandably very sad. Her mom was such a sweet woman who raised my wife alone since her father left when he found out he would be a father. She was a model to my wife, her hero. She taught my wife how to be a woman. She taught her how to love. She helped my wife through her heartbreak. She was overall my wife's most important person in her life. After the loss of her mother, my wife is the most calm woman I've ever known. She doesn't do anything annoying anymore. She doesn't make my salted coffee anymore. She doesn't scream my name anymore. She doesn't scare me anymore. She doesn't let the air out of my tires anymore. And I miss it very much. It was very annoying, but at least I knew she was happy. She had the most beautiful smile, and now it's gone. She isn't even crying anymore. She just lays in bed and cuddles with me like most of the day. She doesn't smile anymore, and I miss her being happy. I miss her smile after I would drink her salted cup of coffee, which I of course knew it was coffee with salt, but it was such a small price for seeing her smile. I just miss my annoying wife. Update. I want to explain to you my relationship with my wife's mother. Me and her were friendly. I respected her as a mother figure to my wife and a somewhat mother figure to me, but she didn't really like me. She was friendly to me, never had an argument with her. It wasn't something personal with me, but she didn't really like my presence. I think it had to do with the fact that she didn't trust men anymore because of my wife's father. But although she didn't like me, she respected me as her daughter's partner and accepted me and even gave me good advice in life. Now update with my wife. She's way better now. Still not her full self, but she started being a bit annoying again. After some of your advice, I decided to wait a bit to prank her until I thought she was ready for a prank. After like 1 month, one morning I woke up before her, got out of bed, went to her side of the bed, and started kissing her cheek while waiting for her to wake up. When she woke up, she looked at me a bit confused and asked what I was doing. Well, I started kissing her more, and then I yelled, "I love you." Her reaction was very odd. She was giggling the whole time I was kissing her, and after I yelled, she said she loves me too. I then told her I'm going to make some coffee for both of us, and you guessed it, I salted her coffee. She again reacted very well and spit it out and started laughing hysterically. In my opinion, that made her a bit better, but she was understandably still very sad. But her first prank was unexpected and very funny. After another month of me doing little pranks on her, she took revenge. I don't know what she got, but it was some type of chocolate cake that when you poke it with a knife, it explodes. I didn't know what the occasion for cake was, but hey, it was cake, so I didn't suspect anything, and so I tried cutting it up and it exploded. My wife was of course laughing very hard, and I just got the rest of the cake that was on the table and put it in her face, so we were both covered in chocolate cake. We were laughing so hard, we both fell on the floor, and after a few minutes, we started hugging each other on the floor and stayed like that for half an hour. Now she's still very sad, but she started being annoying again. But the biggest surprise is that she's pregnant with a girl. Yes, she's going to be a mother and I'm going to be a father. We're both so excited and we already know what the name of our precious daughter will be. My wife asked me, a bit scared, if we can name our daughter her mother's name. And I of course said yes, because firstly, it's my wife's most important person name, and secondly, it's a very pretty name.
I kicked out my best friend because her boyfriend broke in and stole my figurines. Me, female 21, and my best friend Alice, also female 21, have been close for more than 10 years. We went to the same schools and study abroad in Canada together. I came to Canada many years before Alice and have been living in a house that my parents paid for. That's why, when Alice arrived 4 months ago, I invited her to stay with me. She paid rent, but we never had a contract. It started when she got a new boyfriend. She's head over heels in love for him. His name's Kevin. She constantly invites him to my house without permission. He came and stayed for at least 6 days a week
sometimes overnight. I did have problems with Kevin staying in my house, but when I brought it up with Alice, she brushed it off and said he helped her adapt to this new life. He's Alice's only emotional support besides me. However, I discovered Kevin lurking around my house, especially near my bedroom and figurine room, many times when he was around. It happened a month ago when I got home from school. I didn't notice anything since all the doors were locked, even the door to my figurine room, until I discovered some of my figurines had disappeared. Neither Alice nor Kevin were home, so I assumed somebody had stolen them, since Alice never comes into my figurine room. I called Alice, she didn't pick up, but replied and said Kevin brought her to Ottawa for a surprise trip. I tried to explain that my figurines were gone. She asked if the house had been broken into and told me to go check around. Alice didn't come back until 2 days after that, but she kept sending me pictures of her going out with Kevin to fancy places. For those 2 days, I changed locks, set up hidden security cameras, alerted my parents, and I was panicking, and I was in an extremely distressed mood. Nothing happened for 2 weeks, but Kevin decided to steal again. I saw him, with 2 other guys I didn't know, lockpicking my figurine room door and coming out with my figurines through 2 cameras. I flipped out and called the police. Basically, got him arrested since stupid Kevin decided to go hang around. I believe he called Alice since she was home right after I did, crying and begging me to let Kevin go so we could talk. I literally showed Alice the evidence, but she still begged and said it was all a big misunderstanding. It has been 1 week since Kevin was arrested. Alice kept going after me and demanding that I let him go, and at one point, I just lost it. We were fighting right in the middle of the night, and I kicked her out of my house. Since then, I've been receiving a lot of phone calls from her family, from Kevin's family, and friends threatening me to have Alice back and drop the lawsuit that I pressed on Kevin. They're calling me the jerk for abandoning Alice for some figurines. They say that I'm not allowed to kick her out since she paid rent or they will sue. And now that I'm thinking about it, Alice has no one besides me and Kevin, and she's literally sleeping on my patio every night without eating and showering. So, am I the jerk? You're so far from the jerk, you're in a different galaxy. Check your local tenancy laws. It's possible that the eviction rules don't apply because you are her landlord and she lives with you. If they don't, tell her she needs to reach out to whomever for funds and needs to leave your property with her things immediately. As for the harassment, report is necessary to the proper folks. And I think it goes without saying that Alice knew how her little getaway was funded. That she has no one else local is not your problem nor your concern. She wanted you to let her thief of a boyfriend off the hook and absolutely would have expected you to still allow him in your home. She made her bed, now she gets to lie in it for eternity. Not the jerk. Fender bender in the car wash, but who's actually at fault? Let's find out. Several years ago, I worked at a gas station with a car wash. This car wash uses a chain that pulls every vehicle through at the same speed, about 25 feet apart. The car wash was the cause of about 80% of all customer grievances. This one was a bit different. One weekday afternoon, I was stocking shelves when a young woman and an old man come in together. They spot me and say that we need to have a conversation, so I move back behind the counter. Okay, so what can I do for you? I ask with a smile. The woman is about to speak when the old man cuts her off. Your car wash damaged my car. Both of ours. Not the first time that I've heard this. Huh, how so? I ask. The woman chimes in. We were both in the car wash. I was ahead of him, and the car wash pulled his car into the back of mine. Hard. Immediate red flag. That's impossible. The chain can't pull one vehicle faster or slower than another. So I tell them exactly that. The woman says, Is it Pop? Are you calling me a liar? The man asks, interrupting her. She's visibly annoyed. What I'm saying, I point out to the man, is that the car wash couldn't have done this. Either you, I make eye contact with the woman, hit the brakes, I look back at the man, or you hit the gas. I didn't touch the brakes, the woman said, sounding as though she started second-guessing herself. I'm not stupid, the man shot back. I never touched the gas pedal. I had a feeling that the older guy was probably the one at fault here, so he was my prime suspect. Well, thankfully the car wash is lined up with cameras, so I'll just go rewind the footage and see what happened, I say, matter-of-factly. Oh, that's not necessary. We'll just have the company pay for the damages, the man says agreeably. Well, the company is going to want to review the footage anyway, so I might as well do it now. No, let's not waste any more of our time, the man says nervously. I exaggeratingly raise an eyebrow at him, then glance over at her. She clues in that I'm laying the pressure on him and also looks at him suspiciously. "Oh, but surely the camera footage will prove your innocence, sir." Silence. Yup, it's him. So I review the footage, and sure enough, while he was being pulled by the chain at first, he hit the gas and rear-ended her. I came back behind the counter and looked at the woman. Well, turns out he hit the gas and rear-ended you. Now, even though it happened in the car wash, it wasn't caused by the car wash, so this matter will have to be solved between the two of you. If you would like the camera footage to provide to your insurance, I'd be happy to give it to you. I look over at the old man with a smirk. He clearly died a little on the inside, knowing that he's done for. She thanked me and looks over at him as if to say, "Pay up, sucker." Am I the jerk for not paying my boyfriend back after he didn't get me the right birthday cake? I definitely have a bit of a complex about this kind of stuff because of how I grew up, always with my siblings getting what they asked for while I almost never did, and generally feeling like I never get my turn at things, so it will be helpful to know if I'm justified or overreacting. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 10 months, and it was my birthday yesterday. I put a lot of effort into birthdays, including his, and I was pretty excited about it for the last month or so. There's a local bakery that makes a really good-looking pineapple upside-down cake. I've been really wanting to try it and have been saving it for my birthday. About a month in advance, I told him my birthday was coming up and gave him a few activity ideas and told him that I didn't need a gift, but I really wanted a pineapple upside-down cake from XYZ Bakery. He said sure. Now, I know this was probably annoying, but I did mention this specific cake several times, even before last month. Like, we would drive by the bakery and I'd say something like, "Oh, hey, that's the place with the pineapple cake. I want to do that for my birthday." I wasn't deliberately hammering the point home or anything, or aware that it was going to end in a cake-centered conflict, but there were a couple occasions where it came up. And then a week before my birthday, I did text him a reminder about the cake so that he would have the bakery info on hand. Yesterday rolls around and my boyfriend comes over to my apartment and gives me a gift, which is a Kindle. Not a bad gift, and I know they're expensive, but not something particularly relevant to me either. Then he says, "Let's have cake," and presents what you all know by now is not the pineapple upside-down cake, but just a regular grocery store cake with the frosting balloons. Vanilla cake with vanilla buttercream. You guys, I was legitimately sad. If I knew he was going to drop the ball on this, I would have just gotten myself a pineapple cake months ago instead of waiting. I was on the verge of tears because of not getting the one thing I actually wanted, which was that stupid cake. So I told him I was very disappointed and that he should just go home. He had 2 tickets to a comedy show for that night, and one ended up going to waste. Now he's annoyed because it is of course just a cake and wants me to reimburse the cost of the wasted ticket. It was only about $30, but I am bristling at the principle of it and said I didn't owe him the money. He sent me a Venmo request for $30. Am I the jerk if I don't pay? Not the jerk. I'm sick of boyfriends and husbands getting a pass on things like this. You clearly told him what you wanted, and then he didn't even get the cake. You asked him for one thing, and he couldn't even do that right. Exactly. How hard is it to follow instructions? I mean, you needn't put any effort. You are told exactly what she wants. I get wanting to give her a more thoughtful gift, but OP said the Kindle wouldn't be relevant to things they like to do. If my husband kept telling me, "Babe, I think this cake would be cool for my birthday," it would be the first thing on my mind to purchase for his birthday. I mean, either he's not listening or he doesn't care. Guy. Girls are so confusing. Why can't they just say what they're thinking? We're not mind readers. Girl. I'd love a pineapple upside down cake for my birthday. Literally, just the cake would make me happy. I'm saving the opportunity to try it for my birthday. Please get me that specific cake that I want for my birthday. Guy. Gets girl anything but cake. Girl cries out of frustration. Guy. I think you need to calm down. I don't understand why you're upset. This entire post pains me. You are not the jerk. Edit. Some fragile egos have been bruised by my incredibly relevant comment. This comment is a literal imitation of the scenario OP explained, yet some of you are taking it pretty hard. This situation absolutely does happen. If this post had been about a neglectful girlfriend who doesn't properly communicate her needs, then I would have mocked that too. Calm down, dudes. We know you're not all bad. If you're a guy and you don't do this to your girlfriend, then you should have been able to figure out that this isn't about you. Everyone sucks here. This may sound a little direct, but I think you both need to grow up. Your birthday isn't about asking for things that you want and getting them. That's for kids. You're an adult. If there's something you want for your birthday, you get it yourself. Other people get you gifts from their heart. They do what they can for you to honor your birthday. Never reject a gift because you think it's not good enough. It's truly immature behavior. Any gift should be accepted with grace. On a separate note, if you feel like your boyfriend doesn't respect you or listen to you or care enough to take the hint that you're casually dropping, then maybe you have a separate issue. You two may not be right for each other, or maybe it's just too early for either of you to be in a relationship when you're this immature. You're the jerk. I don't care what the top comment says. He messed up, but acting that way is so childish. Edit. I would hate to date all of you downvoters. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know.
To be honest, I would have just gotten them the cake they wanted. But at the same time, I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with someone who flips out over me getting them the wrong cake.
Careful, Karen. People might get mad at you for saying that. You know how serious some people are about the things they ask for and feel entitled to.
Don't remind me, Reddit boy.
Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my boyfriend's flights to come visit me? I, 26 female, am in a long-distance relationship with Jay, 27 male. We've been friends for 5 years and dating for about a year and a half. Because of a previous failed long-distance relationship, I said from the very beginning that I didn't want to be in one again. But then lockdown rolled around and we were living in the same city for a bit, and I fell for him and got myself into another long-distance relationship. When our office reopened and I moved back home, 1,100 miles away, we agreed to see each other once a month, alternating locations. We've been good about keeping this schedule, but there is the occasional month where I'll go and visit him instead of him coming to me. Whoever is visiting pays for their own flights, and the person hosting covers dinners and activities. I feel that it has been a fair arrangement as we both have full-time jobs and make decent money. However, I'm much better at money management and saving than he is, so he often finds himself stressing about funds, but still buying unnecessary stuff and making poor financial choices. It stresses me out to no end, and he knows this and is trying to do better. I recently received a raise at work and was super excited about it, given that life in general has been getting much more expensive. When I told Jay about my raise, his first reaction was to ask me to start paying for his flights to see me, as well as continuing to pay for mine to see him. I reminded him that's not the arrangement we had, and that my lifestyle does not change with this raise. I just plan on putting more money into my savings. He seemed really upset by this answer. I said that I don't think it's fair that I have to pay for everything just because he chooses to spend his money on unnecessary things. He says that I'm well off, and since I won't pay for his ticket, it makes him feel like I don't want to see him. I do want to see him. I just feel like it's not my responsibility to support him financially. And if I do, it will enable his current spending habits. He said it's incredibly selfish of me to think this way, and I understand where he's coming from, but I just don't agree. So, am I the jerk or selfish for refusing to pay for his flights to visit me? Unnecessary stuff. He enjoys collecting a certain type of liquor that can be hundreds of dollars per bottle, making modifications to his car, and other pretty expensive hobbies. Edit. We alternate months and visit each other evenly. The exception is over the summer. We met because our families have summer places in the same little lake community, so in the summer we meet there. It's a 2-hour drive for him and a 3-hour flight for me. But that I'm totally okay with. What Jay chooses to spend his money on is none of your business, just like it's none of his what you do with your money. Both of you had an agreement, which seems perfectly reasonable. Honestly, do you want to be in a relationship with him? He's financially irresponsible and not willing to change. Do you want to eventually build a life with him? Not the jerk. Relationships are a two-way street. He wants yours to be a one-way street financially. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. It's reasonable for each of you to pay for your own travel. You do not need to subsidize his expensive hobbies. Your approaches to finances represent a pretty major incompatibility. Even if you're otherwise happy right now, this does not look built for the long term. Am I the jerk for saying my in-laws have no right to judge me for not adopting my stepkids? I, 35 female, have been married to my husband, Michael, who's 38, for 5 years now. I'm the stepmother of his 2 boys from his first marriage, Lee, who's 14, and Kai, who's 8. Their mother passed 7 years ago. Kai calls me mom and has since he was 4. Lee calls me by my first name. Lee has wanted me to adopt him for some time now, and it was something discussed. The reason it has not happened is Lee does not want me to adopt him, and my husband did not feel comfortable with me adopting only Kai. He's worried about it coming between the boys, and Lee may be feeling left out eventually. But I think the main reason is he worries about the judgment of others and the fact that the comments could get to both of the boys. I love both Lee and Kai, but my relationship with each of them is different. Kai is my son, and we have a mother-son relationship. Lee is my stepson, who I love, but he doesn't always like that I'm here. Sometimes he gets annoyed that I'm here instead of his mom. Sometimes he treats me okay, but he has never been okay with me feeling too much of his mom's role in his life. Our relationship is a delicate balancing act. The boys have been in therapy. We also did therapy together as a family. My husband asked the therapist for their opinion on the adoption, and she said we made the right decision, and that when the boys get older, she said once they were around 10 and 16 respectively, and their feelings have not changed, then adopting just Kai could be okay. But to make sure Lee is spoken to again and given the option to express if he changed his mind. This has been challenging because so many people have opinions. I hate seeing Kai sad, but I don't want to force anything on Lee either, or risk him feeling a certain way if we make the wrong decision. My in-laws mentioned I should adopt the boys about a month into the marriage. At the time, my husband told them we didn't need to be rushing anything. But now they're aware of what's going on, and they told me it's shameful that I have not adopted the boys and become their legal mother. They said Lee is depriving both himself and his brother of the legal protection of being their mother, and that I'm showing clear favoritism by making it obvious I want to adopt Kai and not Lee. I asked them how I make that obvious, and they ignored my question. They told me I should have jumped at the chance to be their mother, that it was monstrous to consider making one of them mine and discarding the other like yesterday's garbage. That angered me because I've always done my best. I ended up saying that they had no right to judge me for not adopting the boys because they have no idea what it's like to be a step-parent, and especially to stepkids who have lost their biological mother. And they have no idea what it's like when both of the kids want different relationships with you. They told me you don't have to be a step-parent to know someone is wrong and how they step-parent. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and well done as a step-parent. You came into the boys' lives at very different points in time, and you're respecting their individual wishes. It would be worse for you to adopt Lee when that isn't what he wants, and to be honest, it can be an option that is always on the table even when he becomes a legal adult.
What happens when a wild Karen demands OP takes down her security cameras? Come find out in our next video. It just popped up on your screen. Tap it with your thumb or click it with your remote. Karen and I are already waiting for you. See you soon.